Good afternoon. It's Friday afternoon. We've made it. We're that much closer. I mean, we're here. The weekend.
We're here.
I mean, if you work a traditional 9 to 5, we're there.
Almost there.
We're there almost.
Yeah.
We're almost. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying with us. If you've been here since this morning, here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, I'm Nick Sturdivant. That's Carlene Bragg.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing, Carlene?
It's Friday. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
Okay, all right. Don't give me.
I'm excited.
I'm excited
It's been a
too.
long week.
It's been a long week. A lot. We talked about it before the show. It's been a long week. A lot has happened.
There's a lot of rain. I'm tired of it.
A lot of rain, but the sun is out.
The sun is out.
And speaking of the sun out, with that tops our top headline. The sun is out, but the heat returns, humidity returns, and it's going to be hot this weekend. There's a lot of things happening from Charlotte Pride to Charlotte FC game.
The Knights are in town.
Knights are in town, so if you're
It's
outside, make sure you stay hydrated, do all the things, sunscreen, hat, all of it. We will have an update on the forecast in just moments. Speaking of, I said Charlotte Pride this weekend. Charlotte Pride kicks off tomorrow. The parade is Sunday. It's a milestone year for Charlotte Pride. 25 years Pride here in the Queen City. So we'll have an update from Anna King in just moments. And then another big headline that we are tracking this afternoon, President Donald Trump is meeting face-to-face with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska for a high-stakes summit that could determine not only the trajectory of the war in Ukraine, but also the fate of European security. I'm reading that from AP News. Again, we're keeping an eye on that.
We'll be
President,
carrying it full too.
yeah, and the meeting, President Trump is expected to land in Alaska. I'm going to give a time frame, 2 to 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And there is expected to be a press conference this evening around 7:30.
Yes.
So those times could adjust, but just want to kind of give you a ballpark time range and time frame of when things are supposed to happen. Let's get back to our second headline. We talk about Charlotte Pride. Charlotte Pride is a big deal. And again, I mentioned milestone year, 25 years of Pride here in Charlotte. The annual Pride Festival is taking place in Uptown, but this time at a new location in First Ward Park this weekend. Rain or shine, but it's going to be mostly a lot of shine.
A lot of shine.
A lot of shine. Speaking of shine, Anna King is outside in the sunshine. Anna, you were at a press conference this morning with CMPD, also Charlotte Pride officials. What did you learn? How are they preparing for this festival?
Yeah, they mentioned, like you mentioned, actually, Uptown will be extremely busy this weekend. They said they are expecting 250,000 people out here. And as you can see behind me, they're already setting up for what is expected to go on here. You can see some of the vendors already setting up. They're expecting around 40 vendors out here. And also right here in the park will be the family tent, and they also have multiple stages going up right now. So there's a lot going on here, but They also went into detail on how funding this year was somewhat of an issue. They explained that some vendors pulled out, or some sponsors rather pulled out, but they managed to get that funding covered, the gap filled by some community members. So they are still expecting this to go on without a hitch, which is really the whole purpose here.
Anna, before I let you go, I know CMPD was there. Did CMPD say anything regarding what they're doing as far as safety efforts?
Yes, CMPD did mention that they will have additional officers here ready to go to cover the huge crowds that, again, is expected to come out this weekend. Mm-hmm.
All right, Anna King live there in Uptown First Ward Park as preparations are underway for Charlotte Pride. You can catch Anna at 4 and 5. Anna, thank you for your time. Yeah, a big deal. Charlotte Pride, again, hitting a milestone year. As you can see behind Anna, they're getting ready for a big weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And look, we talked about it during the morning time. It can get tricky as far as getting around Uptown whenever
Right.
you have multiple things going on, especially a big event like Charlotte Pride Festival.
Pride, and then you have Charlotte FC, and then you got the Knights, and so we know driving around Uptown is complicated as it is.
Right.
Then you're going to add road closures.
Right. So we tried to figure it out this morning. I don't.
The traffic people that know better than we do figured it out.
Right. They got to figure it out. Destiny Richards has it figured out. Let's take a listen to Destiny or what you need to know as far as road closures and traffic and all that.
Charlotte Pride is this weekend, and whether you're going or just need help now through Uptown, this is what about road closures. This morning near continue through the entire weekend. This is Brevard Street. North Brevard is closed between 6th and 9th Streets, and then 8th Street is closed between the light rail and North Caldwell Street. Tomorrow, more closures start and will continue throughout the weekend, and that is 7th Street between the light rail and North Caldwell Street. The parade is happening, though, on Sunday. So before the parade and a little bit after, that's when these closures will be in place. The parade is happening on North Tryon Street, so plan for closures all along North Tryon here. The parade itself is traveling from 9th Street down to 4th Street, so that's where you need to go if you want to watch. And we also have the East and West cross streets between 12th and 4th blocked off, and then because Tryon will be blocked, northbound traffic and southbound traffic will be rerouted as well. If you want to go north, you'll have to take College Street. If you want to go south, you'll have to take Church Street. Have fun and be safe. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm Destiny Richards.
I told you Destiny had you covered when it comes to traffic and all that, getting around uptown for Charlotte Pride. And obviously, Charlotte FC, Charlotte Knights are in town. So, again, that's a great look at that. We'll have more throughout the afternoon and evening on how to navigate uptown this weekend. All right, let's get a check on the forecast. Here's meteorologist Majestic Storm with your full forecast.
This just came out. This is our 11 a.m. advisory. Now we have the very first hurricane of the season. This is the 5th named storm now. This is Hurricane Erin here, moving west-northwest at 18 miles an hour, so it has picked up speed just a little bit, but we now have max sustained winds at 75 miles an hour. In order for it to be a hurricane, it has to have at least max sustained winds of 74 miles an hour. So here's a track of what the storm's going to do over the next few days. We're forecasting that it's actually going to turn into a major hurricane by Saturday night. That's a Category 3 or greater, but you guys, it gets even stronger. By Monday, this storm is forecasted to turn into a Category 4 hurricane, really an intense, strong storm, and you can see the track of it. As it continues to move west, it's moving a little closer to the Lesser Antilles, out towards the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, but it is expected to still curve to the north and to the east. With that being said, the silver lining in all of this is that we're not expecting a direct impact right across the U.S. Great news there, but I do still suspect that over the weekend and especially into next week, we're going to have dangerous rip currents and those impacts across our coastal communities. So make sure you're staying close to the WCNC weather team. We will be on this for you, but that is really the big story right now, the first hurricane of the season. Meanwhile, back home, it is beautiful. Boy, we had a gorgeous sunrise this morning. Now as we're heading into the afternoon, a few things you need to know. Temperatures are going to get hot. We'll see them rise back into the 90s. High heat, high humidity, more sunshine. That's all really the perfect equation for new thunderstorms to actually form as we head into the afternoon. We'll get to that, but it's 86 degrees right now in Charlotte. Our forecasted highs today mainly top off into the lower end of the 90s, so that's even hotter than where we should be for this time of the year. We should be into actually the upper 80s, but it's very, very muggy outside right now. I mean, look at these dew points into the 70s. That's indicating that there's a whole lot of moisture out there in the atmosphere, and it's going to make our air temperatures feel even hotter than they already are. Feeling like we're back into the upper 90s, even triple digits, not just today, but into tomorrow as well. So if you have any weekend plans that take you outside, make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure you're really taking breaks from the heat, because this is totally different than what we have seen really through most of August. Now we're back on track to those above average temperatures, feeling very sticky. Temperatures go up, rain chances drop. Now this afternoon, about a 30% chance now for a few passing showers, even an isolated thunderstorm or two. Here's our satellite and radar. You can start to see a few showers popping into the area, especially northwest of Charlotte. A little bit of cloud coverage as well. So as we walk you through your futurecast, this is what the afternoon could look like. Notice here's about 1 o'clock, starting to see the possibility of a little bit of storm or shower activity. By 3 o'clock, we'll keep a close eye on that, the possibility for a storm to even form right around the Charlotte metro area. This takes us into the evening right now, around 6, 7 o'clock dinner time or so, and this is a change compared to the forecast this morning. This morning it was showing hardly any shower or storm activity, but now we cannot rule this out. Similar as to what I saw yesterday around Charlotte, where it got so hot and muggy and then a downpour, but you know, over on the other side of town, they didn't see anything. That's what we need to be prepared for our Saturday forecast. This is what the rain chances look like now throughout the rest of the afternoon and early into the evening. This is specifically for Charlotte, okay? So yes, I think I would be prepared for the potential of a brief heavy downpour as to what we have seen over the last couple of days. Now it is still mixed in with sunny skies, temperatures rising back into the 90s, but remember, it's feeling back into the upper 90s as we head towards the later half of the day. Lows tonight dip down into the low 70s. It is going to be hot this week, and if you have any outdoor pets, make sure you're properly taking care of them as well.
Yeah, a lot going on, and it's going to be hot, and not only just hot, humid. Whew, be safe out there this weekend, but also enjoy yourself. All right, we're going to step away for 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break. Again, we'll be back in 2 minutes, so stay right here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News. I'm Nick Sertivant. That's Carlene Bragg right in front of me. All right, so let's get to something live. Let's head over to Texas. We're still trying to figure out the details around this. This is Texas Governor Greg Abbott right there on your screen. So right now, Texas lawmakers are getting a 2-hour break Friday before they're expected in their chambers after their first special session adjourned. Friday, which is today, Governor Greg Abbott called a second special session to begin that should have began at noon. Again, this is Governor Greg Abbott. We're still trying to figure out the nature of this press conference. But let's listen in.
We have with us gathered today members from the ag industry. Many of them are ranchers. Many of them are involved in the cattle industry. Many are involved in other livestock sectors. Every livestock sector, and I'll throw in deer population in addition to the cattle population. They're all at risk because of the screw worm. This is an enormous challenge, and you need to understand the magnitude just in Texas. This can result in billions of dollars of losses a year. It could truly crush the cattle industry as well as other livestock industry in Texas. And in doing so, it's going to lead to a dramatic spike increase in what people are paying in groceries when they go to the grocery store and try to buy food. To begin to address this, a few weeks ago, I announced the Texas New World Screwworm Response Team, who've been working on strategies to better address this at the state level. The reality is this is a national and international issue. The screwworm typically comes from South America, makes its way up through Central America into Mexico before reaching Texas. It has gone through all of those geographic regions and now is in southern part of Mexico and is nearing Texas. And we are going to face these dire economic consequences. Our industries, our ranchers, people who buy groceries are going to face these dire consequences if action is not taken to deny the ability of the screwworm being able to get into the state of Texas. And as a result, someone who loves Texas is stepping up and taking action. And that's President Trump. He was here with me last month, and he told the public, Donald Trump loves the state of Texas and the people of this state. He also is concerned about the cost of rising inflation that would result from rising beef prices. And so he sent to us the person who is in charge of this issue at the United States and international level, and that is his Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. Brooke, we're proud to have you here today.
Governor, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. It's a real honor. I was just back with the governor in the office and saying the last time I was in this office was 22 or 23 years ago as a young staffer for then Governor Rick Perry. So kind of a full circle moment for me. What a great country we live in, and it's just such a joy to be home. And not that you, sir, are not the most important person in the room, but State Representative Helen Kerwin, my mom, who you mentioned, is right over here to the left, along with so many of our great representatives. A quick shout out to Commissioner of Agriculture Sid Miller. He has been my partner on this now for 6 months, and no one knows more or has fought more mightily for our cattle ranchers, especially in Texas, but around the country, and your leadership is so appreciated, Sid. Thank you. Again, what a great joy to be here, and I love the shout out to my boss, President Trump, who next to for now almost 10 years, first Trump White House, his domestic policy chief, building in the interim the plans for a second Trump White House, and then to now serve as his Secretary of Agriculture, but specifically to be the first Texan, the first Aggie. Glenn Hagar in this role has been just the great blessing of a lifetime. Again, what a joy to be here. So grateful to my friend Governor Abbott. Davy Crockett once called Texas the garden spot of the world. And having seen much of the world now as the Secretary of Agriculture over the last 6 months, it is true. And again, the greatest blessing to be back. What a great location here in our Texas capital. Working in Washington, D.C. every day, it's impossible to spot the United States Capitol without thinking that it looks a little small next to our own Texas state capitol. I also want to give, again, another shout out to Governor Abbott for hosting us today. It's been really such a great partnership working alongside him these last 6 months, and remembering very well what a champion for freedom he is and how Texas will continue to lead the way in freedom and liberty and less government and deregulation, and how proud I am to have been a small part of that for a long time, but now seeing the impact and the effect of your leadership at the national level, I think continues to inspire. Governor, your steadfastness and strength, especially in the worst of times, which I witnessed firsthand last month when I came down with President Trump, again, continues to be such an inspiration. And in those times, that leadership is certainly more honored and admired and respected and just so valuable. So thank you for that. The USDA is privileged to work alongside the state of Texas to see that our affected farmers and ranchers receive the help they need in the face of all tragedy, but especially in this last one, playing a role where we can, as USDA, was a priority and continues to be. I also want to thank Governor Abbott, even though we're not here today to talk about SNAP or food stamps, but he is one of 11 governors from around the country that submitted a waiver that has been approved. I was honored to sign just last week that starting in April of next year, taxpayers will no longer be funding sugary drinks and candy in the state of Texas for those in our SNAP program. Obviously, again, as we mentioned, the reason we're here today is Governor Abbott so eloquently started us is on the New World Screwworm and what that potentially means for our cattle markets and for this great country. Farm security is national security, and ensuring that we in the Trump administration are doing everything we can every day to protect American farmers, American ranchers, and American consumers continues to be our highest priority. We are here in Austin, Texas to address a serious national security issue and threat. It is a threat to our ranching community represented by so many of my friends over here to my left, but it is also a threat to our nation, and that threat is the New World Screwworm. The New World Screwworm is a flesh-eating parasite. People think it's actually a worm, but it's not. It's actually a parasite that torments cattle and even the occasional human or household pet. This pest, which was once eradicated in the United States decades ago, has now reemerged and reemerged dangerously close to our southern borders, but also waging a war with our friends in Arizona and New Mexico as well. Its peril is not just in the cause, but because it endangers the livelihood of our livestock, it endangers our livestock industry, and it threatens the stability of beef prices for consumers across America. That's a dinner table issue, as Governor Abbott mentioned, and one that affects every American home and community, directly affecting the cost of groceries and therefore the cost of living. All Americans should be concerned, but it's certainly Texas and our border and livestock producing states that are on the front lines of this every day. In early July, a detection just 370 miles from Texas sent a clear message. The threat is real and the time to act is now. That's why today we are building on the comprehensive five-pronged plan I announced on June 18th in Edinburgh alongside Congressman Gonzalez and several others from Washington to combat the New World Screwworm's northward spread. So far, to date, before today, we have suspended live cattle, horse, and bison imports through U.S. ports of entry along the southern border. We have launched an $8.5 million sterile fly dispersal facility in South Texas, and we have invested about $21 million towards renovating an existing sterile fruit fly production facility in Mexico to produce up to 100 million more sterile flies needed for eradication. That's to date. We've audited Mexico's surveillance program, trapping and movement. We have held 4 public listening sessions on sterile fly production technology, eradication tools and technologies, and the benefits and barriers of enhanced domestic and international sterile fly production. Much of what we have heard at those listening sessions informed our plan that I will be sharing with you now. Today, we are going even further and taking the most sweeping actions in our country's history to date to stop this pest in its tracks. First, today we are announcing USDA will invest and build a domestic sterile fly production facility in Edinburgh, Texas, which is situated about 20 miles from the southern border and complements the dispersal facility we have already begun production on, with a capacity to produce 300 million sterile screwworm flies per week, and that's how we eradicate the parasite. This facility will triple our current output and eliminate our sole reliance on Panama and Mexico for sterile fly supply, putting America first. It's a tactical move that ensures we are prepared and not just reactive, which is to date what we have really been working through. We will invest, the federal government, up to $750 million on this facility, not an insignificant investment, and it will also create about 300 jobs right here in Texas. Second, we are launching up to $100 million in addition to the $750 million to identify and deploy cutting-edge technologies that can accelerate our response while the construction of the facility is underway. From novel traps and lures to modular sterile fly units, I am calling on the brightest minds in the country to build on our existing tools and help us outpace this pest quickly and in the most innovative way possible. Third, because of the migration of infected wildlife over the U.S. border, keeping in mind, Governor, and those who know this issue well know, back in the 1950s and 60s, we didn't have this population of wildlife in South Texas the way we do now. But we are ramping up the hiring of USDA-employed mounted patrol officers known as the Tick Riders or the Tick Crew. I actually went and rode the border with them about a month or two ago, which will be the cornerstone of our surveillance program. The Tick Riders are mounted on horseback and will provide the first line of defense against a New World Screwworm outbreak along the U.S.-Mexico border. We're also training our Beagles of the Beagle Brigade to detect screwworm infections, and will be significantly ramping up our border surveillance program with those and others. And finally, because pests don't care where the border is, we are working directly with Mexico, perhaps in a way never seen before. My counterpart, Secretary Julio Bertigay, and I are in contact almost daily on this issue at this point. We are working with Mexico to boost the surveillance training and oversight inside Mexico to ensure real-time tracking and reaction time while the U.S. works to verify Mexico's reported results and to help them improve their systems south of the border. Mexico has agreed to halt animal movement in affected zones, which will help push screwworm back towards the Darien Gap and away from our doorstep. The entire Trump administration is working in one coordinated effort to prevent this pest from entering the United States. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, of course, helmed by our friend Dr. Marty Makary, underneath Secretary Bobby Kennedy, is identifying current animal drugs, whether authorized in the U.S. or abroad, fast-tracking those that would likely be effective against the New World Screwworm. FDA has been a strong partner and is currently undergoing expedited avenues to ensure animal medical countermeasures are available. USDA and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, are constantly monitoring our ports of entry, again, to keep the pest away. We are working alongside Secretary Chris Wright in the Department of Energy and Administrator Lee Zeldin in the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, on new innovations to combat the pest. More coming on that. And we will continue to take all necessary steps across the entirety of the federal government, working alongside our partners at the state government.
All right, so right there is a press conference happening with the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. She's holding that press conference with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. We're going to step aside for a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes here on WCNC Plus. Don't go anywhere again. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right. Thank you for staying with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are at the top of the hour. It is 1 o'clock. Thank you for hanging with us. A lot going on a Friday afternoon, and we don't want to waste any time. Let's go to a story that we are been following since this morning. So there was a protest today on South Tryon Street outside of the Wells Fargo Center. So there was a protest, and I want to read snippet of what we got into our newsroom. So folks, they're standing together to witness and speak truth about what they're calling exploitative practices that Wells Fargo is engaging against people and the planet. Again, this is a release that we got into our newsroom claiming that the company backtracked on climate commitments, undermined workers' rights, and rolled back DEI initiatives. Let's send it out to WCNC Charlotte's Julie Kay, who was at the protest. Julie, you were there. What are folks saying, and what's the message overall from folks?
Yeah, and kind of what you read is really interesting too, because there were so many pieces to this puzzle that they wanted to address today. DEI initiatives, rolling back climate stuff, union busting was something that they talked about. So I was curious when we walked in what's going to be the main thing, and it ended up being those climate policies that the company did roll back earlier this year, a couple weeks after Trump was inaugurated. So the initial goal was by 2030 they would get rid of some of their emissions, and then by 2050 they would be financing net zero emissions. So the whole goal here, they say, is to get rid of reliance on fossil fuels and get rid of that fossil fuel economy. But with this move from the company, that's why they chose to protest Wells Fargo specifically, not other banks as this group has in the past. They specifically chose Wells Fargo because of that particular climate initiative that was rolled back that other companies have not gotten rid of at this point.
And Julie, before I let you go, were you able to hear anything from Wells Fargo? Have they said anything regarding this protest?
That's a good question. I actually did hear back from them in a pretty timely manner. They said no comment, which I'm not surprised by, but I am curious to hear throughout the rest of the day if we see any more. This is not just a here in Charlotte situation. Of course, Wells Fargo has a big headquarters here, but this protest is happening across the country in some of their other big hubs. I know New York, DC, for example. So it's not a singular protest. I know that Wells Fargo's not commenting as a whole, but I'm curious to see how some of these other protests went. This one was pretty unique because they did a petition style, so they actually read aloud some of the things that they wanted, including reinstating those climate goals, reinstating some of those DEI hiring policies at the senior level, and some other things as well. But they have been delivering those to local branches all morning, and then at this protest that just wrapped about 30 minutes ago, they delivered the last one to the Wells Fargo in the ground floor of the headquarters. So though Wells Fargo as a company is not commenting, I think we're going to see a lot more throughout the day about these other protests, Nick.
All right, Julie Kay live there outside the Wells Fargo Center. Julie, thank you. You can get Julie at 4 and 5:30 this evening for more on this report. Again, Julie, thank you for your time there. All right, so let's shift now. We want to go to something live. Julie just wrapped up there. Again, you can catch her at 4 and 5:30. Let's go to Washington, D.C. This is a protest happening there, or I should say rally happening there in our nation's capital. So it's the Free D.C. rally. There was a rally, I believe, earlier this week along the same lines. And this is in response to the Trump administration and the federal government's takeover of the police department there in D.C. It has drawn some criticism, concerns, and rallies like this and protests at night as well there in our nation's capital. Let's listen in to what's being said at the rally happening right now in our nation's capital.
And I got to reiterate that one more time. Crime is down in Washington, D.C. Carjackings are down in Washington, D.C. And guess what, y'all? I also stand as a resident of Ward 1 in the U Street corridor. And my neighbors, the ones who are the most carjacked or cars broken into or stolen or what have you, are the ones who set up the 14th and V checkpoint to tell folks to turn away. And so, as one of the most highly impacted neighborhoods of the carjackings and crime that we're talking about, us as as residents, and I also, again, am the chair of the U Street Neighborhood Association, and I'm the manager of the U Street Main Street. All platforms have stood with Washington, D.C., and we are crying out front, free D.C., as the rest of the city is. We don't feel that we are unsafe in our own neighborhoods. And if Trump feels that way, he can move to Ward 1. I can show him the lines, and he can become a resident and maybe run for council, since he wants to make the changes to what's happening in our neighborhoods. But until then, he has a job as the president of the country, and so how about you focus on that? Crime is a problem. Guess what, guys? In the United States of America. How about that? Not just in Washington, D.C. Crime is a bigger problem in the White House because guess what? He got more felons than me. Because I'm standing with 0. Okay, period. So let's stop talking about all of the things that we shouldn't be talking about, and let's talk about change. And real change for the residents of Washington, D.C. is and will be D.C. statehood when D.C. becomes the 51st state of the United States of America. When I say D.C., y'all say statehood. D.C.? D.C.? When I say free, y'all say D.C. Free? D.C. Free? D.C. And I'm going to give it to my girl, Kaya, another one of the co-founders.
Thank you, Kelsey. All right, so we know that it is not, you know, the excuses they're giving for why they want to do this hostile takeover DC are BS, right? We know that. So the reason they want to take over DC is because authoritarians always want to silence dissent. Now, are we going to let them do that? No! So what we're going to do is we are going to line up. This is going to be a little bit of an exercise, but because I know a lot of folks here, and I believe in you, and I believe that we will win a free DC, we will win liberation for the people of DC, we will win all the things we imagine for our community, and that will take a lot of work, and that means we have skills, and that means we also can line up. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple people fold this banner under and kind of go over to the sidewalk over there and hold it in front. And then what I want people to do is line up behind those people. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the courthouse where they are actually making a decision at 2 p.m. about whether the judge will give a temporary restraining order to stop the illegal orders that were given yesterday. So there were two things that were illegal. One was trying to reverse the Sanctuary Values Act of DC that our elected officials passed. What do we think about that? The other was trying to name a different chief of police.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNT Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, you're watching live at in our nation's capital, a rally underway called Free DC Project Rally is happening there at DC Police Headquarters. This comes as the Trump administration this week did a federal takeover of the police department in D.C., saying crime is on the rise. However, there are reports and stats that crime is actually down there in Washington, D.C. So this has been a point of contention this week as the federal government has taken over the police department in Washington, D.C. All right, let's shift away from that. We want to get to another big conversation. Conversation surrounding redistricting. So happening right now, lawmakers in Texas are back in a special session. This is their second special session. And so they took a 2-hour break today. Governor Greg Abbott called on a second special session that I believe started around noon. And so let's take a listen and just to kind of lay out what's in this special session. Camp safety, flood warning systems, cutting property taxes there, That's what I'm getting from our content partners in Austin, Texas. But again, let's listen in because, and I should say, I missed this, redistricting is also in the special session. Which would be legislation that provides a congressional redistricting plan. So let's take a listen in to what's being said with Texas lawmakers.
By her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purpose of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrant of arrest if necessary until further order of the House. Members, under the rules, while the House is under a call, any member who wishes to leave the hall must have written permission of the Speaker. The Chair is providing written permission to be entered into the journal for each member registered as present on today's roll call to leave the chamber and return noon Monday, August 18th, with the understanding that if enough absent members are located and returned, you must be prepared to return to the chamber within 6 hours of receiving notice. Mr. Guerin moves the House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Saturday. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House stands adjourned.
All right, so it looks like Texas leaders just adjourned that special session happening there, calling for members to be back Monday, the 18th. So we will continue to keep an eye on the ever-evolving situation there in Texas, as far as, among other topics, we talk about redrawing congressional maps. And look, this is a topic that is it's not unfamiliar with, I should say, to put it plainly, familiar. This is very familiar to what's happening in North Carolina and South Carolina. When you talk about redrawing congressional maps in order to reshape congressional control. So yesterday evening during Live Impact News with Colin Mayfield, we got some insight on this. And just to give you some context, when it comes to redrawing maps, this usually happens after a census, so every 10 years, every decade. But you're starting to see more states do the redrawing of the congressional maps mid-decade, or look to do that mid-decade. So we had on Dr. Michael Bitzer, a political science professor at Catawba College, who authored a book on North Carolina gerrymandering, for insight on all of this, including what's happening in North and South Carolina. Let's take a listen into that conversation.
To get to our professor of politics and history at Catawba College, Dr. Michael Bitzer, who has joined us before. Dr. Bitzer, thank you so much for your time. I do know that you authored a book about NC gerrymandering called Redistricting and Gerrymandering in North Carolina, Battle Lines in the Tar Heel State. We're seeing battle lines drawn all across America right now, sir. In Texas, obviously the news in California that we've been covering here on WCNC Plus with ICE activity outside, just some crazy images. And honestly, Dr. Bitzer, how did we get here? Because we're having a mid-decade redistricting issue. Obviously, here in North Carolina, there's a subject of some issue. The current maps drawn by the Republican-controlled General Assembly in 2023 are still at the center of ongoing lawsuits. And in fact, just in June, I do believe, if you want to correct me, there has not been. There was a hearing in June, but we have not had a final decision as of August 7th on those maps. So just update us where we're at, if that's correct, and what the next step looks like for us here in North Carolina.
A pattern of, I would say, mad, mutually assured destruction based on partisan redistricting. If Texas is going to pursue this, California is going to pursue it. We could potentially see a state like Missouri and New York also engage in this. So this is really going into a midterm election year for 2026 that typically the president's party loses seats in Congress. That is a kind of given rule in American politics, but the margins are so narrow, in particularly the U.S. House of Representatives, that Donald Trump is trying to do his best to ensure that Republicans at least have an attempt to claim a majority in next year's elections. Thus, he issued the command to Texas. I'm not sure that we will necessarily see something here in North Carolina. Again, North Carolina's partisan redistricting, the partisan gerrymandering, is legal based on a state Supreme Court decision that overturned a previous decision saying partisan gerrymandering was unconstitutional. The cases, however, deal with racial gerrymandering, the drawing of lines to impact voters potentially on race. And we've got a number of cases coming from other states going up to the U.S. Supreme Court that could potentially have an impact on this case here in North Carolina, and ultimately could strike at the heart of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that really kind of governs how racial dynamics in redistricting play themselves out.
There are a lot of big things in there. I mean, obviously, the Voting Rights Act is something that we've known about, obviously, for decades. And so many Americans obviously want to have their voices heard. This is what this is about, getting those votes heard. And really, as you said, having the majority swing one way or the other. I got to ask, Dr. Bitzer, is this the new norm in American politics, do you think?
We are absolutely in the new norm, and we are in an environment that is both nationalized and polarized. Everybody knows about polarized politics. The two parties cannot get along. There's very little common ground between them. And in fact, the voters have also become highly partisan and highly polarized because we are now living in like-minded communities. And so many of the precincts that become the building blocks of these legislative districts, congressional districts, are indeed so heavily slanted to one party over the other because the voters are slanted so heavily to one party over the other. But there's also the nationalization effect. You know, we used to talk about in the 1980s, all politics is local, that elected leaders, particularly members of Congress, want to take care of the folks back home, even if they didn't vote for them. Nowadays, it is nationalized dynamics. All politics is nationalized. What happens in D.C. is driven through the states, even down to the local levels. So this is the new American politics that we're in. Nationalized, divided, highly polarized, and these are just symptoms of these kind of phenomenon going on in American politics.
So in layman terms, Dr. Bitzer, I'm still trying to understand a little bit what is ahead for North Carolina. So for our viewers, you know, let's say the decision lands and these are constitutional maps that have been drawn. Do you see us getting into a predicament? I mean, at that point, who knows where we're at, right? We could be in 2026 by that time and nearing the midterms. Do you think that there would be a chance then that redistricting could be coming back up, that maps could be redrawn on either side, or is that not even a potential that you're thinking of?
I think right now we have to kind of wait and see how the rest of the country plays out. If indeed Texas goes through their process and California goes through theirs, and then Missouri and New York goes through their, national Republicans may look at North Carolina and say, hey, you've got a couple of Democratic seats that could be potentially split up and allow us Republicans to gain a few more seats out of North Carolina. They've already got a 10-4 advantage, primarily by packing Democrats into places like Charlotte and Raleigh and Durham. There is a process that could potentially crack all of those Democrats in those concentrated central cities and splinter them among various other districts that extend out into, say, suburban North Carolina, into rural North Carolina. That could eliminate some Democrats here in North Carolina as well. So I think we need to see what the national dynamics play out, and if indeed everybody is going to a mutually assured destruction, maybe North Carolina gets looked at by national Republicans and say, it's time for y'all to take out some Democrats to combat what New York and potentially California are doing as well.
Yeah, this whole situation seems unprecedented, in my opinion. I mean, we have, state elected officials who are leaving the state of Texas. I'm not going to comment bad or good, but obviously they have a reason to do so. We have, Republicans in the state calling them to come back to finish their jobs. I mean, this is. I don't know if we have a historical precedent where we've seen state representatives leaving the state to protest these type of issues. Have you ever seen anything like this?
We actually have, and out of Texas as well. I mean, Texas has had a kind of past history of redistricting in the middle of the decade. This is very much out of the norm because most of states tend to do it right after the census in a year that ends in 0. They redistrict in year 1. They change the maps. They get the populations equalized. And then they also kind of look at doing the partisan breakdown. What we are seeing out of Texas is, basically politics at raw play. And we've seen that happen in the 1990s. Texas has done this before. Texas Democrats have left the state and tried to hold up redistricting sessions. But this is really something that, we have not seen other states take into advantage. So we'll have to kind of wait and see how California plays itself out, as well as potentially other states.
Sorry to show my ignorance there. I was trying to rack my brain to think if it's happened again, but I appreciate you letting us know and being so kind with that. Doctor, I got to ask this because a lot of folks, and I'm thinking about this as well. And I live in South Carolina, so it's a little different for me. But anyway, right, we're on the precipice of a huge, midterm election. Obviously, we'll see what happens in November if and when California can get their ducks in a row to get that special election had. But anyway, here in North Carolina, I'm sure people are wondering, right, how their voice can be heard with gerrymandering. And I don't want to say necessarily the maps are already like that, but for the maps that we are looking at in North Carolina, should folks be worried about their voice being heard with gerrymandering at play?
Well, certainly what gerrymandering does is basically isolate the minority party, the party that's out of power, so that they don't have a voice. And we typically tend to see that with this redistricting kind of an effort going on. Here in North Carolina, our previous congressional delegation was a 7-7 split. That was court ordered. But once that decision that reversed the partisan gerrymandering as unconstitutional went into effect, Republicans were able to redraw the maps and basically create 3 additional Republican seats out of those 7 Democratic seats. Could they do more? There is a very distinct possibility that could happen. You said you were from South Carolina. I've heard discussions about potentially drawing the last Democratic congressman out of his district and making it a more favorable Republican district as well. All of this is based on geographic polarization, and so much of this is based on where the lines are. For here in North Carolina, Democrats have to be concerned because if you're talking about potentially getting rid of 2, maybe 3 other Democratic seats, you're talking about a real shift in Republican congressional control of North Carolina to the Republicans at the detriment of Democratic voters.
Yeah, it is the wild, wild west in some respects in terms of politics right now. Dr. Bitzer, you covered so many things. Appreciate you being a good sport and fielding all those open-ended questions. Last thing for me is, what else am I missing here? You're the expert. What should they know? And I know, the foreseeable future may not be totally clear for a lot of us, but anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see. It sounds like Texas Democrats are going to return to Austin because they got the guarantee that California Democrats would start their redistricting process. That could be a potential hurdle in California because they have to overturn a state constitutional amendment that instituted an independent redistricting commission, something that's supposed to take partisanship out of the process of redistricting. California Democrats want to put that back in, put in partisanship back into the process. That's going to require a vote by California voters to do that. But if California is as Democratic as Texas is Republican, that could be a real potential likelihood of that process playing out. Then the dominoes really start to fall across the United States, and we'll just have to wait and see how things play out.
You brought up a great point. Just last thing here. In what likelihood is it, and I think I saw from the federal government level that somebody is, I don't exactly remember, the representative is trying to institute legislation where they do keep to the regular mandated every 10-year type of redistricting with the census. Is there any possibility that that will stay the same? Because as we can see, the competitive advantage is gaining some seats here and there in any state that you can get them. But do we go back to as we were, do you think? Is there any possibility of that happening?
Well, Congress can certainly step in, and they can do their part to basically tell the states, whoa, no more mid-decade redistricting efforts, and put a stop to it. Unfortunately, that particular piece of legislation was proposed by a Republican, and it would also have to get through a very narrow U.S. Senate in order to get legislation passed, and then it would have to go to President Trump, who basically, by my read, doesn't want not to have a mid-decade redistricting effort, but wants to ensure that seats are built for Republicans out of Texas. This is really, a kind of war games scenario where if one side moves their chess piece, the other side is going to move their chess piece, and ultimately both sides may suffer in Armageddon.
And it feels like us, the voters, are in the middle of all of it. So, yeah, I guess for better or for worse, I guess we'll see. Dr. Bitzer, a professor from Catawba College, we certainly appreciate your time, sir. And again, wrote the book, NC Gerrymandering, Redistricting and Gerrymandering in North Carolina, Battle Lines in the Tar Heel State. Check it out. And Dr. Bitzer, thank you for your time. It's always great to talk to you and to have an expert advice here on WCNC+.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, that was Dr. Michael Bitzer, his conversation with anchor Colin Mayfield. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us on WCNC+. All right, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us here on WCNC Plus Live Impact News. We are already at the bottom of the hour, 1:29, almost 1:30. Thank you for sticking with us. A lot going on. This weekend in Charlotte, specifically Uptown. We have the Pride Festival parade Sunday. Charlotte FC's in town. Charlotte Knights are in town. And the heat and humidity has returned. So let's get a full check of our forecast. Meteorologist Majestic Storm, who's also tracking now Hurricane Erin.
Well, good Friday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. Hey, I want to give you an update. We now have our very first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. This is Hurricane Erin. This is coming in from our 11 a.m. advisory. Still moving west-northwest at 18 miles an hour. It has max sustained winds of 75 miles an hour. Now, in order for a tropical storm to get upgraded to a hurricane, it has to have at least 74-mile-per-hour winds. You can see we're not too far away from that. So this is a low-end Cat 1 hurricane right now, continuing to move mainly west. So it's going to head out towards the Lesser Antilles, out towards Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and then it starts to steer a little bit north and a little bit east. So here's a track of it as we're watching this very carefully for you over the weekend. We're expecting that this is actually going to turn into a major hurricane on Saturday, sometime between Saturday night and into Sunday. That's when those winds start to pick up. You can see 120-mile-per-hour max sustained winds, but notice it gets even stronger. By early Monday morning, that's when we could have ourselves a Category 4 hurricane. Now, if there's any silver lining in any of this, it's that really it's not going to make landfall across the United States. It mainly stays out in the ocean. It's really going to continue to steer more north and east, really between the United States in Bermuda. You can see a lot of those models are all suggesting that, but there is still some uncertainty when it comes to how close those impacts will be when we look at the coastline right here, especially when it comes to North Carolina. So stay with us. We'll be on top of this all throughout the weekend, but that is some big news weather-wise when it comes to our hurricane updates. Meanwhile, back home, it's beautiful. We've had sunny skies this morning, more clouds this afternoon, passing showers, isolated storms will be possible. It's going to get hot, though, feeling like we are back into the upper 90s, low 100s. Across the mountains, we are going to be topping off mainly into the mid to upper 70s, low 80s. A little warmer for the foothills, 87 in Morganton. Many of us still seeing lots of sunshine, and that is just a nice relief after such gloomy weather that we've had this week. Dew points are high. This means it's going to be very muggy and very sticky this weekend. It's going to make those temperatures, again, feel even hotter than they already will be. Here's the next 3 days. What you need to be ready for: 90s each and every day, mixed in with sunshine and cloud coverage. There's the next 10 days. 4 days in a row, you'll see those temperatures hit those low 90-degree temps, and that's actually a little bit above our average. We should be into the upper end of the 80s. Rain chances go down, but they're still going to be there, and yes, that does include this afternoon. Notice passing showers and storms start to form in the mountain locations, and then they start to slowly track more to the south and to the east. Here's about 7 o'clock tonight, so right around dinner time or so, I would say maybe keep the umbrella handy just in case we do get one of those very random downpours. You know how that goes. Over the next 12 hours, this is localized to Charlotte. I mean, we do have chances of just scattered showers and isolated storms. It's not a for sure thing, but I would keep this in your mind if you do have those plans. Otherwise, 7-day forecast, we will have lots of sunshine in between it all. It was so beautiful this morning, and many of us still holding on to mild conditions. 92 degrees, though, that'll be our high, 72 for our low. We'll do it again tomorrow, and if you're heading out to the Charlotte FC game, make sure you're staying hydrated. You'll need sunblock this weekend. Summertime is returning across the Carolinas, and then next week, we'll start to see temperatures drop back into the upper 80s. Hope you have a fantastic weekend and get outside and enjoy that sunshine.
All right, so that was Majestic with a check of our forecast. Carlene asked me what I'm doing this weekend. I told her.
Staying inside?
I'm staying inside. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired, guys. I get it.
It's been a long week, especially for you. You worked an extra day.
Yeah, I was here Sunday evening holding down the night side shift. But, you know, things may change. The sun may change my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. Carlene, do you have plans?
I would like to stop by Pride this
Okay.
weekend, and that's really about it. To be honest, that's the only thing on the list. Get outside. I'd like to just get outside.
You will see Carlene outside.
I'll be outside.
And if you see her outside, say hi.
Wave.
Wave. Give her a hug.
Give me a hug.
Give Carlene a hug. She's not gonna.
I'm a hugger.
She's a hugger. Just had to put Carlene on the spot.
Absolutely.
See what she's doing this weekend, and she answered. She passed. She passed the test.
Thank you.
All right. So Charlotte Pride is going on. I mentioned this before. Charlotte FC. They're playing.
Yep.
They're playing.
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
The real Salt Lake, as
Yeah.
the team is called. And Charlotte FC. They're on a win streak. So we got a chance to hear from.
Oh, I wish Jeb was in here. You should see his shirt.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, where is Jeb?
Jeb,
when
if you're
we need
listening,
him?
can you come in here so we can show off your shirt? He's got the Charlotte FC like kind of Hawaiian shirt on. It
Is
has
it
like
silk?
minty.
Is it like
it looks silky.
Okay.
I was very impressed.
I didn't. Okay, well, Jeb.
Come on in here.
I'll get through this reading. Hopefully he can pop in here. Well, Tony Husband, a play-by-play announcer for MLS Season Pass, spoke with WCNC Charlotte's Nick Carboni about Charlotte FC's form and their win streak and what we can expect on this weekend's game. Let's take a listen to it.
Sports Director Nick Carboni here in the WCNC Plus Live Impact News studio, and we are talking about Charlotte FC, as hot as they've been in MLS play. Big one at home this weekend against Real Salt Lake, and calling that game for MLS Season Pass is Tony Husband. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Always good to be with you, and always good to look forward to a game in Charlotte as well. And the run into the season really gets underway now, and the Crown at home certainly pretty well placed.
Yeah, so you were telling me you did some Leagues Cup in Charlotte as well the last few weeks, and I'm like, well, I'm glad we got the Charlotte FC that was streaking in the MLS play before that. What did you make of their dip into Leagues Cup and the tournament overall for Major League Soccer so far?
Well, I think Leagues Cup this year came in with a new format. You had to basically start on fire to progress to the quarterfinal stages, because only 4 teams out of the 18 teams in MLS would make the quarterfinals. Same goes for the Mexican clubs. If you didn't start well, you were really up against it right off the bat. So, as Dean Smith said, really 45 bad minutes against Juarez cost his team a chance to progress too far in the tournament. I think take that 45 minutes away at the very beginning in their first game, and they didn't play too badly. I mean, there's always going to be an opportunity as well to try a few things out, try some different players, give some players a rest when you have other competitions, whatever they might be. And now the focus, of course, though, is right back to MLS play. And, of course, Leagues Cup didn't come without its costs. Pep Biel is out for another few weeks as he nurses his hamstring injury. So it just goes to show, these things can be great. These things can also come at the wrong time for you. You never quite know in the rich tapestry that is a season of soccer competition across different competitions. But they come out of it. A great result in Cincinnati last week. That was exactly what they would have wanted to bounce back, to get a road win as well, because this team's been poor on the road, to be frank. That's what they wanted going into now. The run-in, which has 5 home games left. And I think Charlotte probably needs to win all 5 of those if they're to actually puncture that kind of top 4.
You can find him in the booth at Bank of America Stadium on Saturday. You can find him on X at Tony Husband. Tony, Charlotte have now won 5 in a row in league play. What is clicking for this team that is clearly back on the upswing despite some big changes? Patrick Adjamong leaves, Pep Biel goes out, they still win without him. What do you think is working best right now for Charlotte?
Well, I think it's what's worked really pretty well since Dean Smith came in. They're a difficult team to beat. They're very strong at home. If you start from those foundations, you're generally going to do quite well. It's then what can you add? What is the star quality, and what are the frills you can almost add to a team if you've got those first 2 kind of qualities that I mentioned. Wilfred Zaha has found form. There's no doubt about that. He's now got 9 goal contributions in as many games. He could take a little place in the MLS record books if he could make it 10 this weekend against RSL. Pep Biel, when he's been fit, has been absolutely outstanding this season, a different level of player to what we saw last year. And there's also been players around the fringes of the team, and I mean that by saying on the wide side, Abada has really played his part when it's mattered. And Kerwin Vargas I've been more impressed with this season as well. And I know that they've been working on him and working on some parts of his game. And I think we've seen an improvement in his performance. So you add all those little parts together, and Idan Toklamati was a player that they were pretty high on even before Patrick Agyemang was sold. He is definitely a piece of the puzzle up top that Dean Smith has plenty of faith in. Key thing, of course, though, for this group right now is that they don't suffer any more injuries in this stretch.
Yeah, Toklamati, has he sort of taken the pressure off of this organization in this transfer window to add that high production goal scorer? And what have you made of their approach so far? They pick up Tuffalo at left back. They add Archie Goodwin, a young striker yesterday, kind of an ascending player. And then they surprised all of us by going out and getting a keeper from Miami and Drake Callender.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're building, aren't they? They're building blocks. They haven't taken the big swing that you wondered that they might do. But I'll go back to what I said about Toklamati. They've been pretty high on him since he came into the side and started to get minutes, even when Patrick Agyemang was here. They've banked a fantastic profit for him, and I think they feel now in bringing Archie Goodwin in, there's a player who, again, they can develop. Dean Smith likes what he sees of the former Adelaide man already. He's got a lot of goals in the Australian League. He's taking a step up from going from that league to playing in MLS. He's not going to have a lot of time to find his feet, but he will provide some competition. You've got two young and hungry strikers there now in Toklamati and in Goodwin when he becomes available. And Toffolo will bring a lot of experience as well when he is available to play. I mean, they're waiting for that visa to come through any day now, any hour now almost, and he will be a good addition to the group going forward as well.
Yeah, part of what made the Callender acquisition so, befuddling, I guess, in Charlotte was Kalina's performance and really back in top form at Cincinnati. It was probably his best game of the season. What did you make of the move to add Callender? And does it say anything at all about Kalina's future or the rest of this season for Kalina? Or is it just adding talent in net and they've got lots of competitions over the next couple of years?
Well, I think that Callender was ripe for a move because for whatever reasons, I think it seemed like a moment for him to move on from Miami. It didn't look like he was likely going to get the number one goalkeeping spot back imminently there with Oscar Astari playing in goal and also with having made another signing in the summer as well. So the right time for him, an American player, good age, goalkeepers have lots of longevity. And who knows, you never know about the future. I mean, Kalina has come over to the States. He's been a goalkeeper of the year. I don't know what the long-term future might hold for him, but you've got a sense Callender's a number one in waiting. I mean, he's a player. He hasn't come to just sit on the bench for the next couple of years of his career. I mean, and David Bingham has actually done pretty well as well when he's been called upon. So the goalkeeping depth is really, really deep right now for the Crown. It puts them in good stead whether they do lose a goalkeeper going forward in the longer-term future, but it also means they're in good shape right now as well. But I agree with you on Kalina. I think he's had a difficult few games this season. He was goalkeeper of the year last year, absolutely outstanding. Any mistake a goalkeeper makes is always highlighted because they're the only one on the field, and sometimes I think they get undue prominence sometimes if they make a slight error, because players can do that all around the field and they get away with it. There's no hiding place for a goalkeeper. Kalina, unfortunately, has found that a couple of times this season.
You mentioned Zaha's 9 straight matches with a goal contribution, and boy, have they needed him in this form at this particular time. Do you think he's just making the adjustment finally to MLS, or is it tactical, or is it a mixture?
Probably a mixture. I think when he came in, he'd been playing in Turkey. He's a player who I watched play in England a lot, and I was so pleased to see him come to MLS because I felt that he kind of had every quality that there would be to be a star in an American sports environment. He's a player that when he's happy, that fantastic smile he can produce on his face, the quality he can bring, the way he can lift fans out of their seats. He can do things on a soccer field that very few others can do. Dean Smith has said, there are moments where he's unplayable. We've also seen moments where he's cut a frustrated figure as he adapts to the league. He will never played in a league with the roster rules that MLS has, where you have quite a range of talent across a roster from top to bottom. And getting used to that for often these players who are individually such high-end skilled players, sometimes that can be difficult when you look across the group and some people can't do what you think, well, you should be able to do that, but maybe it doesn't always come to pass in a team where the roster is broad. But I think we're seeing, we're starting to see more and more. I still think there's a bit more we can see from him. I think there's more in his locker. There are more moments where he can leave us spellbound. And if he does, then this is going to be hopefully a very prosperous finish to the year for the Crown.
As we continue to follow this football season for Charlotte FC and prepare for the American football season for the Panthers, I'll just go back to the old adage in the NFL that teams want to play their best football in November and December, and the coaches that are best at getting that out of their teams at those times do the best and have the most success in the playoffs. From your experience with Dean Smith in this league last year and then perhaps in England, what is it about his managerial style that might make this upswing something that we'll see last through October and November?
Well, I think I'll give you another bit of, quoting the American form of football, defense wins championships. Yep. And, if you've got that solid foundation and this group, there's no doubt about it, are very strong defensively and are very well organized. Dean Smith has, a very affable way about him when he speaks to the media every week. And when you see him often on the sidelines in a game, he'll stand there, he'll be watching quietly. But he can be strong-worded as well behind the scenes. He can be harsh, he can be strong. He can really, tear into players if he feels that's what the message that needs to be conveyed. It's mastering all the different arts of communication that a manager needs these days. That mix between being able to put your arms around a player and also needing to be really tough, give them some tough love when it matters. He's got the experience. He knows what it's like to chase playoff type positions and play in playoff games as well. And of course, he's had a year of doing it in MLS as well, and he's seen the pain of having to play a first-round playoff game last year that went to 3 matches, and of course, they came out on the wrong side of a 2-1 defeat against Orlando, and I think he's learned a little bit from that as well. I would have a lot of faith in him being very well positioned to help this team navigate the next few months, and as you say, to finish hot, because that is absolutely what matters. If you're finishing strong in October and getting a good position for the bracket, then you're in a good position, full stop. And of course, Charlotte in the playoffs, at home, in November, big crowd. I don't think anybody in MLS, would want to be the opposing team in that scenario.
Sounds great to me, Tony. Despite this franchise best streak, they've had trouble pushing past 7th. And this was a team that came into the year, and even after that playoff loss last year, had a stated goal of 4th or better in the East. Is that attainable at this point? What do you think the ceiling is with a good couple of months here to end things?
Well, they have these 5 home and 3 away of the remaining 8 games they'll play. I mean, I feel they've got to win the 5 at home. They haven't played well away. That's what's cost them ultimately. And that's what's going to make getting in that top 4 quite difficult. Columbus are above them, have a game in hand. Miami are above them, have 3 games in hand. If those teams produce any kind of decent form as we go into the fall, then they're likely to edge above them. The Eastern Conference in MLS is absolutely stacked. It's by some way this year the strongest conference of the 2. You've got a lot of good teams up there. I mean, we just talked about Miami and Columbus. They're not in that top 4. We saw Orlando dismantle Miami last Sunday on Sunday Night Soccer, and they're up in 4th. Nashville have been very strong this year and have got a Golden Boot contender in Sam Surridge. Philadelphia have had a tremendous year. So, this conference is really, really strong. There's going to be some pretty decent teams that will not even make it into the playoffs or the wild cards this year. For the Crown now, to achieve that top 4, it's going to be tough. But all they can do is keep winning and beating what's in front of them. If they do that, particularly with those home games, they give themselves a shot, because other teams will take points off each other along the way.
All right, well, there is another team coming into the stadium this weekend. I haven't mentioned them, and I'll wrap up with this, Tony, as you're calling the game. What do you make of this matchup between Charlotte and Salt Lake, which currently sit 10th in the Western Conference table?
Well, Salt Lake, a side that haven't prospered too much on the road this year. They are just a little lower in their conference than where Charlotte find themselves. They're a team that are used to playing in playoffs year in, year out. They've made a couple of swings in the transfer market, got a couple of new signings that they've made in recent weeks. It'll be interesting to see how far they might push them as far as giving them a start or putting them on the bench this weekend. They've got no Diego Luna, U.S. men's national team star. He's out through suspension. He was sent off in their late defeat at New York Red Bulls last week. That is a real blow for Pablo Mastroeni, who actually went to college up in North Carolina as well. So it's a return to the state for their veteran head coach. They're a difficult opponent, but they're an opponent who, frankly, I think at home Charlotte will seek and try and get all 3 points against. And they should do if they get things right, because with no Luna, that takes a spark away from Salt Lake, who are still trying to embed a couple of new players into the team as well. So I have Charlotte down as pretty strong favorites for this one.
All right, he is Tony Husband. You will hear that voice calling Charlotte FC's match this Saturday. Thanks for lending it to us for a few moments today, Tony.
No problem, Nick. Good to talk to you.
Great conversation about Charlotte FC. Charlotte FC on a win streak right now, probably because of one person in our newsroom maybe providing the luck.
I think so. Look at that.
Look at that shirt. That's Jeb providing the
face.
luck.
All I'm going to say, I've watched every game, the full 90 minutes that they've won. So I'm not saying it's me, but during that rough patch, I was traveling, couldn't get to all the games, and they stuttered a little bit.
Oh, man. So where did you get the shirt from?
This was actually a giveaway last season against DC United.
Okay.
And I went with the former producer, Reams now, so shout out Reams over Atlanta.
Yeah, content
and so
partners.
We got there. We thought we wouldn't get them. So this shirt's actually an extra large. I usually wear a medium. So it's difficult for me to wear anywhere else. But I figured, you know what? It's Friday. Charlotte's hot. The sun is out. It felt like a good way to ring in the weekend, if you will. Big game tomorrow.
I'm not gonna
Stand up a little bit so I can see this.
Yeah,
thing.
here, I'll give the full range. So
Look at that Sir Minty's face on it. Y'all know I love Sir Minty.
That's a pretty cool shirt.
Yeah, it's fun to rep the crown with this thing. I'll tell you what.
I love it, man. Jeb is all things soccer. Jeb's all things everything. Seems like
all
it.
things everything.
I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying that I'm just serious. Jeb knows a lot of things.
I just hockey. That's the one that I don't get to as much.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a huge hockey guy, but I like the checkers. So shout out checkers.
Shout out to. I thought you were hockey. Maybe because it was a checkers. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I love
okay,
the checkers. I go to as many of those games as I can. Going to a hockey game versus watching.
Oh, it's completely
on TV,
different.
Two different things.
Totally different experience.
You got to go to a Hurricanes game.
Yeah, I really want
wanted to go to a Canes game.
You got to go to a Canes game.
That's one of the
I've
ones
heard
I
that
really
they're
want to get up there
ton
too.
of fun.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Covered a couple of playoffs, but we're not talking about the Canes right now. We're talking about Charlotte
FC.
Sure.
Jeb's cool shirt. They play. Give us a quick breakdown, Jeb. They play Real Salt Lake.
Yep, Real Salt Lake tomorrow. It's gonna be,
Real. Okay.
Yeah. You got to think
Fancy.
like Real Madrid. They're very.
I've been
Make
messing
it
up that
extra
name.
syllable in there.
Pronunciation over in Salt Lake. But no, it'll be a great game.
Yeah.
I think it's a really neat opportunity for Charlotte to finish the season strong. There's a little fewer than a dozen match days left in the season, and in the MLS, you really want to get in those top 4 playoff spots. Right now, Charlotte's about 3 spots back. So pretty much everyone believes they have to win out at home. It's 5 more home games to secure that final spot. But if they do, they'll get to host home playoff games.
That's huge.
Which would be amazing, because that's away. Their form is awful.
Yeah.
But at home, at the bank, no, it just sounds like that's what it's been rough. They couldn't seem, but obviously they beat FC Cincinnati in a great game. Kalina masterclass last weekend, so maybe that's turning it around. But to secure home field advantage, just like any sport, would be massive. And I think they have the right form. They're you want your best guys playing their best soccer at this time of the season, and Wilfred Zaha is fantastic right now. Christian Kalina, the goalkeeper, former goalkeeper of the year, he's been fantastic. So
let's go.
You get them playing hot. They just signed Archie Goodwin from the Australian League. He's a good competition for Idan Toklamadi. So, and Pep Biel comes back in a couple weeks. He's probably their best player. So I think that right now, very exciting time to be a Charlotte FC fan. tune into the game this weekend. Go if you haven't already. There's still tickets available. It's going to be awesome. I think we're seeing some really special stuff going on at Bank of America Stadium.
Carlene got it cracked up over saying Charlotte FC has good form. It says,
that's the lingo.
It's the lingo.
That's how they call
you
it.
gotta know
I know,
the lingo.
but he also said he's like they're awful on the road.
Oh yeah,
and I
no,
was
their
like,
away
that's
form has been
huge.
torrid.
Oh, okay.
It's
I was like,
been-
that's very, very
But they're
honest of
turning
you to
around.
say.
They're turning around. I mean, it is very exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play. And Real Salt Lake's best player is suspended. A U.S. men's national team star Diego Luna, who showed out fantastically over this summer's Gold Cup, he's not playing. So, luckily it's not for an injury, it's just for a suspension. It was,
Right.
They had a close game last weekend against, I believe, New York Red Bulls, which was won in an extra time penalty by the Red Bulls. So that Real Salt Lake will come with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to act on a chip on your shoulder when you're missing your best guy. So hopefully they can take advantage of that here in Charlotte.
This is why we need Jeb when it comes to soccer, because Carlene had me saying Real Salt Lake instead of Real.
Like I don't.
Well,
know.
it's
I don't
Salt-
know much about soccer.
It's so interesting.
I
The
was
Utah
saying it
team,
wrong.
there's got the Utah Jazz. I didn't know Utah was known for jazz. Real Salt Lake. Where's the Real come from?
But I was
So
saying
it's-
it wrong, though. I was saying Real instead of Real.
I didn't know.
Carlene.
And no one
Comes from a
corrected
different
us.
generation of MLS soccer.
You're right. Look, we figured it out. Jeb, great breakdown there. Love the shirt. Great breakdown. Even better shirt.
Yeah, I try. If nothing else, I try.
And one of the best people.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
I'm just saying. All right. Let's step away for a little bit. Let's take a quick break. We're only going to be gone for 2 minutes. So stick around. You can wait for 2 minutes. Stay here on WCNC Plus. Again, we'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back. My bad, guys. I was meant to do a good transition in. It just kind of came up. I'm sorry. We're approaching the top of the hour here. Okay, so we mentioned it before. Pride. Charlotte Pride is this weekend hitting a major milestone, 25 years. Plus, it is shifting to First Ward Park, just a few blocks over, not far. The parade happening Sunday, events kick off tomorrow. A lot happening in Uptown. You may be wondering what's closed, how do I navigate Uptown, I have plans in Uptown. So let's check in with Destiny Richards. She has a full report on closures and how to get around Uptown and the area this weekend with Charlotte Pride on tap.
Charlotte Pride is this weekend, and whether you're going or just need help navigating through Uptown, this is what you need to know about road closures. Event setup started at 9:30 this morning near First Ward Park, and they will continue through the entire weekend. This is Brevard Street. North Brevard is closed between 6th and 9th Streets, and then 8th Street is closed between the light rail and North Caldwell Street. Tomorrow, more closures start and will continue throughout the weekend, and that is 7th Street between the light rail and North Caldwell Street. The parade is happening, though, on Sunday. So before the parade and a little bit after, that's when these closures will be in place. The parade is happening on North Tryon Street, so plan for closures all along North Tryon here. The parade itself is traveling from 9th Street down to 4th Street, so that's where you need to go if you want to watch. And we also have the East and West cross streets between 12th and 4th blocked off, and then because Tryon will be blocked, northbound traffic and southbound traffic will be rerouted as well. If you want to go north, you'll have to take College Street. If you want to go south, you'll have to take Church Street. Have fun and be safe. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm Destiny Richards.
All right, so that's a good breakdown on how to navigate Uptown this weekend as Charlotte Pride gets underway. Let's check in with our forecast. Here's meteorologist Majestic Storm.
This just came out. This is our 11 a.m. advisory. Now we have the very first hurricane of the season. This is the 5th named storm now. This is Hurricane Erin here, moving west-northwest at 18 miles an hour, so it has picked up speed just a little bit, but we now have max sustained winds at 75 miles an hour. In order for it to be a hurricane, it has to have at least max sustained winds of 74 miles an hour. So here's a track of what the storm's going to do over the next few days. We're forecasting that it's actually going to turn into a major hurricane by Saturday night. That's a Category 3 or greater, but you guys, it gets even stronger. By Monday, this storm is forecasted to turn into a Category 4 hurricane, really an intense, strong storm, and you can see the track of it. As it continues to move west, it's moving a little closer to the Lesser Antilles, out towards the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, but it is expected to still curve to the north and to the east. With that being said, the silver lining in all of this is that we're not expecting a direct impact right across the U.S. Great news there, but I do still suspect that over the weekend and especially into next week, we're going to have dangerous rip currents and those impacts across our coastal communities. So make sure you're staying close to the WCNC weather team. We will be on this for you, but that is really the big story right now, the first hurricane of the season. Meanwhile, back home, it is beautiful. Boy, we had a gorgeous sunrise this morning. Now as we're heading into the afternoon, a few things you need to know. Temperatures are going to get hot. We'll see them rise back into the 90s. High heat, high humidity, more sunshine. That's all really the perfect equation for new thunderstorms to actually form as we head into the afternoon. We'll get to that, but it's 86 degrees right now in Charlotte. Our forecasted highs today mainly top off into the lower end of the 90s, so that's even hotter than where we should be for this time of the year. We should be into actually the upper 80s, but it's very, very muggy outside right now. I mean, look at these dew points into the 70s. That's indicating that there's a whole lot of moisture out there in the atmosphere, and it's going to make our air temperatures feel even hotter than they already are. Feeling like we're back into the upper 90s, even triple digits, not just today, but into tomorrow as well. So if you have any weekend plans that take you outside, make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure you're really taking breaks from the heat, because this is totally different than what we have seen really through most of August. Now we're back on track to those above average temperatures, feeling very sticky. Temperatures go up, rain chances drop. Now this afternoon, about a 30% chance now for a few passing showers, even an isolated thunderstorm or two. Here's our satellite and radar. You can start to see a few showers popping into the area, especially northwest of Charlotte. A little bit of cloud coverage as well. So as we walk you through your futurecast, this is what the afternoon could look like. Notice here's about 1 o'clock, starting to see the possibility of a little bit of storm or shower activity. By 3 o'clock, we'll keep a close eye on that, the possibility for a storm to even form right around the Charlotte metro area. This takes us into the evening right now, around 6, 7 o'clock dinner time or so, and this is a change compared to the forecast this morning. This morning it was showing hardly any shower or storm activity, but now we cannot rule this out. Similar as to what I saw yesterday around Charlotte, where it got so hot and muggy and then a downpour, but you know, over on the other side of town, they didn't see anything. That's what we need to be prepared for our Saturday forecast. This is what the rain chances look like now throughout the rest of the afternoon and early into the evening. This is specifically for Charlotte, okay? So yes, I think I would be prepared for the potential of a brief heavy downpour as to what we have seen over the last couple of days. Now it is still mixed in with sunny skies, temperatures rising back into the 90s, but remember, it's feeling back into the upper 90s as we head towards the later half of the day. Lows tonight dip down into the low 70s. It is going to be hot this weekend. If you have any outdoor pets, make sure you're properly taking care of them as well.
Yes, that's a great tip. Obviously not going to be as hot as what we saw a couple of weeks back, which is great news for, I think, for everyone around the Charlotte area. Great to join you here on WCNC Plus inside the Impact News studio. I'm Colin Mayfield for the next 2 hours. We are watching and waiting the president's arrival in Alaska, and once we have some developments there, we'll make sure that you know, and we'll bring you the latest. There's a live shot. We can see some F-22 Raptors on each side. Those are sweet airplanes, by the way. But anyway, we will obviously take this shot once we get the president. I do believe the president from Russia is already there.
Yeah.
Got there yesterday. There was video of his plane on the tarmac in Anchorage. So we're expecting his arrival around 2:30. Could be
2:33-ish.
Okay. So yeah, we'll let you know exactly when there'll be some developments on that, and then obviously the big press conference tonight we will carry live for you here on WCNC Plus during our streaming from 7 to 9 and after our 6:30 Impact weather stream. We do have, I'll stop talking because Walker Lawson is here on another development, another data center, this one's not in Mooresville, it's in Statesville. So talk a little bit about this. This is much different. So just set the scene for us. I know it's a very open-ended question here, but you have a lot of developments that you're always on, Walker. So you gotta let us know here. What's going on?
Yeah, man. So obviously we got a tip last night that a data center is being proposed. I'm going to pick up my laptop and just kind of show you on this lovely farm right here. If you can see it, there you go. This nice large property out there. Now I'm wearing this vest because it's right on the side of I-40. So we're out here on the side of the road, but this is a large project that has been proposed. Now, this has caught a lot of traction, obviously, because of the data center that was proposed on Teresa Earnhardt's property that was withdrawn just a couple of days ago. Now, this project, we have reached out to the town of Statesville, to Statesville proper, and asked them for some information about this development. We haven't heard anything back yet from them, but the rezoning signs are up, and we spoke to several neighbors who attended a community meeting last night about this data center, and they provided us images. This is a completely different developer than the one that proposed the project on Teresa Earnhardt's property, and this is also not related to that in any aspect. So again, residents reached out to us once they heard another data center was being proposed just in a community to the north of Mooresville, and so we've come out here and spoke to people about what they think about and what they heard from that meeting last night.
All right. So let's talk about the proposal as a whole. I know, obviously, in Mooresville, things got shuttered there. Obviously, the controversy attached with the Earnhardt name and all that went into this. Do you know the differences between both of these data centers? Is there any difference that we can let people know about? Because I know specifically there was a specific reason why that was going to be built in Mooresville. What do we know about this company and what the future holds for them?
Yeah, so the images that we were provided by residents who attended the meeting said this is from Compass Data Center, which is a company based out of Dallas, Texas. The proposal for this property is to bring 5 data center buildings to the site. It's approximately about 200 acres. Now, I spoke to residents that live out here. They have said, Mooresville, it was a big deal, I think mainly because the last name was Earnhardt, and that drew a lot of attention to it. This property has been farmland for a long time, and residents that, obviously I spoke to people that are concerned at a county level that live out in the county that are very worried about what this development means and seeing another data center, but there were some residents that their properties are very close to this farmland, and they said that they are somewhat okay with this proposal because they are more so concerned that if this doesn't pass, another developer will come forward and try to propose hundreds of homes, and that is not what they want. So some of the residents that live here say you kind of have to take what you get. Times are changing, and this is kind of the name of the game.
Man, well, I mean, at least there's some, jobs coming to the area, right? There's some economic incentives coming from this. It sounds like in terms of locally, right, having another business in the area, not necessarily headquartered, but obviously just having another opportunity for people to be at. Have they talked about the economic ramifications in that regard?
Well, since we haven't been able to talk to the company that's behind it or from Statesville, we really don't know except for what residents have told us from attending that meeting. Obviously, I have images from the proposal. And again, it still seems very early stages. Again, this hasn't even gone to the planning board per the images that we received from the residents. They basically said this is a formality that they have to do to speak to the people that live in the neighboring community. According to their presentation, it looks as if this is expected to go to the planning board on Tuesday, August 26th. I did speak to a member that's on the planning board on the phone who said, they don't have that agenda yet, so they're not sure, but this is what the developer looks to be bringing forward.
All right, Walker Lawson reporting for us. We appreciate you, man, being in Statesville again, getting the information that a lot of folks need to know, and really, right, it highlights the growth that we have been talking about over the last months and last couple of years as well, just about people expanding in the northern part of the Charlotte area. So good to see that the footprint's getting bigger, and appreciate you being up there for us, Walker. Thank you, man.
Of course, thank you.
All right, we're going to continue to monitor things, take a shot here from Alaska. We are still awaiting, well, it looks like they're rolling out the ladder there, as you can see in the background. I would imagine we will soon see Air Force One.
Happening.
Yeah, at some point. So, again, we're waiting, hopefully a landing around 2:30 Eastern time. And again, this is in Anchorage. You can see the clouds hanging pretty low over the mountains there. We will make sure that we give you more information. But ahead of this is at Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska. This is the joint base that you're seeing. And a very unusual meeting. A lot of folks have talked about it. Obviously, Alaska in the 1800s became a part of the United States, but a very interesting meeting point for the president and the president of Russia. A lot of people have kind of pointed that out. So hopefully there will be some discussion about the end of this ongoing war in Ukraine that's been going on for years. Now, both leaders admitted that they don't expect to walk away with a peace deal, which is probably disappointing for the people of Ukraine and everywhere else. And I gotta say, Richard Engel is already in and has been in Ukraine for months now. I just saw his report the last couple of days talking about how the people of Ukraine are a little bit worried about potentially some of the Ukrainian nation being annexed off to Russia. In his report saying that some of those individuals he spoke with didn't want that at all. That they live there and don't want to be a part of Russia. So again, this is a very serious situation with implications across the international landscape for a lot of folks. And again, don't forget, I mean, this is the UN is watching, and a lot of folks have talked about how this could change European landscape if Russia could be emboldened by this. There's a lot at stake, and a lot has been made about it. So again, it seems like the president's goal that's been stated is to secure some type of ceasefire or at least initiate these peace negotiations. Now, we do know that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will not be there and was not invited. So, again, that raised concerns among Ukrainian officials and its allies. So, again, we'll continue to monitor the situation and make sure you know when the president hits the ground. But let's go to some comments made in the Oval Office yesterday on Social Security on the birthday, I think 90th birthday of Social Security.
How are you? Thank you very much for being with us. It's a good time for this country, whether you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I think you're hearing it from a lot of people, not just from me. We're doing very well in so many ways. And the gentleman on my right, we recruited him. We tried to get the best person. We got a man that you'll hear in a second has done an amazing job with respect to Social Security. He's running it, and he's running it like nobody ever even dreamt possible. And it's the 90th anniversary right now of Social Security. So today we celebrate that 90th anniversary of one of the most significant pieces of legislation ever signed into law, the Social Security Act of 1935, and we're going to make it stronger, bigger and better, really doing a job. In the campaign, I made a secret pledge to our seniors that I would always protect Social Security, and under this administration, we're keeping that promise and strengthening Social Security for generations to come. You keep hearing stories that in 6 years, 7 years, Social Security will be gone, and it will be if the Democrats ever get involved, because they don't know what they're doing. But it's going to be around a long time with us. Very much, you'll be surprised to hear some of the numbers. I'm delighted to be joined by the Commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Frank Bisignano, who in the world of business, in fact, I wrote some of the little things down that he's had an amazing, he was Chief Operating Officer of JP Morgan Chase. He worked for Jamie Dimon. And Jamie Dimon said that he was amazing. So think of that, Chief Operating Officer, JP Morgan Chase, had a storied career. Then he went to First Data. For those in the business, you'd know it's the largest payment company anywhere in the world. And worked for Henry Kravis, and it was in big trouble. He took it over as CEO. He made it incredible. They merged with Fiserv, and he became CEO of that, and that became extremely successful. I was in Milwaukee. I guess they have the Milwaukee Arena, and where we had some good success and some good speeches. But he's a really legendary guy, and he wanted to do this. I mean, he just wanted to straighten out Social Security because he loves our country. And what he's done in a few months is amazing. Almost 60 million American seniors rely on Social Security for peace of mind and a life of dignity and retirement. These Americans paid into the system, and they deserve leaders in Washington who are going to protect the benefits they've had and protect Social Security. Under Biden, Social Security went down like nobody's ever seen it, deteriorated. There's never been anything like it. The 4 years of Biden were very, very destructive. It couldn't have gone on much longer. Social Security was going to be destroyed. It was being destroyed. The average call wait time reached an all-time high of more than 42 minutes. Field office wait times were at 32 minutes, which is unheard of, and the disability claims backlog was the longest ever in recorded history. In other words, it was run just like the country was run. It was run really badly. But I'm pleased to report that under our leadership, and Frank in particular, the changes he's made and what he's done is sort of a miracle. Sort of like what happened with the country as a whole. Field office wait times are now down 30% since last year, and it looks like it's going to a total record number. And the record was set in a long time ago when the world was a lot different place. We're going to beat that record. Call wait times are down 73% while serving twice as many customers per day. The disability claims backlog is down 26%, and seniors now have 24/7 online access to their accounts, which they never had before, whereas under Biden, the website was down 29 hours a week for maintenance purposes. It was essentially not open very much. They were always maintaining it, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They had a person running that had no idea what they were doing. Among my very first acts was to order all government employees to return to the office or be removed from the job, which means our Social Security offices are now open for full business hours 5 days a week. So unlike being shut down all the time, we're open at record levels also. We're making it really great for the people that want and demand Social Security, and they paid into the system. They deserve it. Last month, I signed one big, beautiful bill and allowed no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, okay? So how's that? Not bad, right? No tax on Social Security for our seniors. And to protect our benefits, we've already kicked nearly 275,000 illegal aliens off of the Social Security system. These are people, many of them have already left the country, and yet we were sending them checks all the time. And 275,000, and that number is now even larger than that, Frank. It's an unbelievable job. And what that's doing is making the system strong. It's making it strong.
All right, we're going to cut into the president to get to our Jesse Pierre, who is patiently waiting. And I know, Jesse, yesterday we covered a Gastonia teenager who was missing. Her parents had talked about how, she had run away before, but this time felt a little bit different. They were worried in a different way. It sounded like, a dating app was involved, a teenage dating app, that potentially she could be with people from that app. But, sidebar from that, dating apps as a whole, I have kids, and our thing in our house is, hey, we try not to have phones until 8th grade. It's a hard thing to battle, right? Having supervision modes on, parental modes. Sometimes you can get around that type of stuff, but it really is interesting to see that there are specific dating apps for teens. So let's just start there. I mean, were you surprised to hear that?
I was, and I spoke to the CEO of Teens for Courage, and I thought there was just dating apps, right? And so my question was like, how's a teen getting onto these apps? But she's like, no, there's a whole world of apps, and we're not just talking about social media, Instagram, and folks using social media. It's like there's literally apps for teens used to communicate, and I guess used for dating as well. The app, I did reach out to Gastonia Police, and I asked them which app was it, and it's called Wiz. So I asked Dr. Sherelle Carrington, what are some tips and safety things that parents should, know when it comes to, their kids and teens and so forth, using these apps to connect with other, you're hoping other young people, right? And, and the main thing is, she said, is that parents need to know who their kids are talking to. They need to be engaged with their kids so that there's a level of comfort, so that, if there is an issue, if there is something going on, or if they are going somewhere, they let their parents know. She also talks about kind of just different things teens can do. One, like setting and communicating boundaries, whatever they're comfortable with emotionally, physically, and socially, sharing those boundaries with whoever the person is and making sure to stick to them. She also says that if they're using any type of site, to make sure that it's a trusted one. And how do you find that out? Well, the internet is your friend. It can be your foe, but it could also be your friend, right? And so you use that to do the research on, what is this site? And it'll tell you if it's a site that has been flagged for ABC and something that you shouldn't be on. And, you can check in with your friends too. What are you using, And then again, parents knowing what apps are on the phones that your child is using and so forth. And when you do feel comfortable enough with this person, make sure you do, take the time to get to know them and messaging and so forth, making sure that they know, they are who they say they are. But also, keeping your friends in the loop, so if you are going to go out on a date, making sure that for one, that they know where you're going, right? Put a plan together. Even for me, if I was to go on a date, I tell my friend where I'm going, and I don't get into anybody else's car. I will meet you somewhere. And also meeting in a public space that's safe. There's cameras around and so forth, things that can make sure to track down where you are, if something were to happen. And then she also talked about, watching out for any signs of abuse, jealousy, threats, intimidation, any unwanted touching, aggressiveness, put downs, things like that, that are, red flags, and the main thing she said was to trust your instincts. If it doesn't feel right, if it feels funny, don't even put yourself in a position where it can all go wrong, where you can put yourself in danger. And, with that, have a safety plan. If something goes awry, whether it's a friend that you already have in quick contact, hey, whatever pineapple code word, something's not right. They already have your location so that we can get things in motion to get you the safety that you need. Now, when it comes to this young girl, Emma, who is missing, 17-year-old Emma Galindo, Like you mentioned already, police believes that she may have been connecting with someone through the teen dating app and then, has gone missing. So, all the works are everything's in the works to try to find this young girl. But, we don't want this to be a bad situation. And hopefully folks can learn from some of these tips and so forth so they don't, put themselves in a position where, they're in danger because of, meeting someone that just isn't right, Colin?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you simultaneously answering questions on teams. Jesse, you are such a good sport. You're one of our most talented reporters, so appreciate you really sticking this out and being on some of the hardest stories of every single day. So thanks so much for following up. Sorry, I got to cut it short a little bit. We're getting some movement in the meeting in Alaska, so I'll leave you. I'll let you do your story. We'll see you tonight at 5 and 6. Please watch Jesse's story tonight, and hopefully it'll have a happy ending in terms of the Gastonia team being found as well. So Jesse, thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, let's go to these images right now. And in fact, our content partner, they have some live coverage, which we'll dip into. And if we need to provide some context on the back end, we'll do that for you.
Appreciate just being able to share all this with you. And we appreciate you joining us here. Alaska's News Source, alaskasnewssource.com, on the streaming apps. You can do it all over the place. But very cool. We got that team coverage. But taxiing right now.
Let's go to Ariane Bureau and Johnson Kuhn, who are outside of Boniface at the gate there. They've been there since this morning, and definitely with a big gaggle of reporters who are documenting this event.
Gaggle, that's exactly
that is exactly it. And as you guys were mentioning, we're of course following the coverage online as well, and mentioning that Air Force One is touching down. We have a plane on the tarmac that we're seeing, or that you guys are seeing, but this is what we were hearing. There have been about 4, I would say, choppers that have just been going back and forth behind us over our heads. So obviously that's probably for security reasons and clearing that airspace. But the anticipation of this meeting, we know President Trump is landing and is the first to arrive. Behind him shortly after should be Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, no, and it is very exciting. I was just saying, last night, seeing pictures of Air Force One just having landed in Juneau, just seeing the photos of that. I mean, it's exciting, and it goes back to what you said about just this week of anticipation. Everything's sort of building to this moment. It's been exciting and continues to be nothing short of that.
Yeah, and it's a backdrop on Alaska. Of course, it's been 3 years since President Trump made an official visit to Alaska. So this summit marks the first during his current term in the White House. And in 2019, he came and he was here at Jaybird. He shook hands with members of the military. So really something historic for the state of Alaska, and being that this is both a joint base, Elmendorf-Richardson, so that is both an Air Force base and an Army base combined. So of course, the logistics behind this, the security behind this, as we mentioned, we were live outside of the gates, but we had 3, 4, 5 choppers that were just buzzing over us. And so now we're following this along to see what's going to be happening from this. We know they're going to meet, how long that's going to take, what that's going to look like. Of course, that's all things that we're going to be following and wondering. But hopefully right now I can feel it's just a really, really kind of exciting energy.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And again, being surrounded by so many reporters from, all walks of life is really only just drives the point home that much further. And I was also thinking the last time since Putin and Trump actually met face to face, my understanding was 2019 as well in Osaka, Japan. So if you think about Anchorage, Alaska, for those of us who live here, it's just the town we live in every day. You kind of you forget about what sort of significant ordeal it is to have two people like this, two world leaders coming to meet in our home city.
Yeah, it's one thing to have the President of the United States come and visit your state, obviously the President of the country, but to also have, another world leader, a Russian president, visiting the state of Alaska as well, and being on the United States of America grounds.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to send it back to you guys.
All right, so here you can see this better shot. It's much closer to this plane here. And typically, a lot of times what this is press. You'll see a huge gaggle of people running out, backpacks, trying to get their spot to make, to broadcast this and get the photos to wire services across the world. So that typically is what this first plane is for. We'll see in a minute if you see a whole bunch of people coming out, in particular with big backpacks and stuff like that. that's probably press. But
And we're in the time zone. We're in the time frame. It very well could be the president. It could be the press gaggle. It could be a totally different plane. We're just kind of, like we said, just kind of seeking it as it comes and experiencing this with you as they're setting up. I've never seen something like this live in real time, like this. So I just really, really appreciate it. Setting up the stairs. Like I said, did see that gaggle. Don't know how many. Do you know about how many people of the press actually fly with the president? How many people he has?
You know,
on
I actually don't know
Air
that
Force
one, but I know it's like always, you know, you have friends who are part of the,
That's right.
the cruise, and you can see that everyone's always taking photos of themselves on Air Force One. It's a cool experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so we're just waiting to see who's going to get out of this plane. Again, I think it's going to be
Look at that.
press.
It's kind of interesting. There's a door within a door. So you open up the plane door, and then it looks like your average, what you would open a door into a bedroom or something. You know? just a door, a couple doors. So.
And it's just been confirmed now this is Air Force One. So we'll see. The president gets out. He's a little bit early for having, and in particular for having left about a half an hour late today. And we have not seen the plane for President Putin. So we'll see if the two world leaders are going to come out on the tarmac together, or if this is going to be a shot you'll be seeing for a while now, waiting for Putin to arrive here. Seems, you know, definitely knew that President Trump was going to be first. Yesterday, Governor Dunleavy said that he would be meeting with President Trump in the morning. So perhaps this is when those earlier talks with the governor will be happening before meeting with President Putin. But again, we were in, and everything's fluid, everything can change. But we were, you know, in their instructions for the day, the two men, President Donald Trump and President Putin, are supposed to walk off into the tarmac together. So we'll see if anybody gets off, or if we're going to wait in particular for that second plane to get here.
And as we're waiting, kind of seeing as this takes place, you know, this past week was a really interesting week just around the station. A lot of people in and out. Governor Dunleavy was here. You interviewed him live at 5 o'clock. Did he offer any insight as to what his role will be today?
He had said that he wanted to talk in particular, we have a great interview with him about Alaska's role in this, in particular our oil. And the idea being that so many countries buy oil from Russia that it keeps the country profitable, you know, to continue this war in Ukraine, and that it should be Alaska, you know, so this is kind of the sales pitch for why Alaska should be more of a leader, of course, and world leader as far as oil.
And on that note, real quick, Augusta McDonald did speak with the governor this week. He said the same thing.
Yeah.
It was, So.
And Air Force One was wheels down, Alaska time, 10:20 a.m. local time. This is from a pool report. The press secretary had previously planned a one-on-one meeting between President Trump and President Putin. Is now a 3-on-3 meeting. Trump will be joined by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff.
Yep, and for the expanded bilateral meeting and lunch, Rubio, Witkoff, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Chief of Staff Susie Wiles will be also joining President Trump. Like we talked about, he spoke to reporters. The White House released about a 6-minute thing on YouTube, but maybe it was about 20 minutes after they took off, took questions, and the audio of the president's remarks should have been played back for those on the ground per the White House, but those who still need them, quotes and top lines. Oh, this is information for the press. I'm sorry, I'm just reading like a press release on air right now. So this was a very cool, a pool report from inside the crew traveling with the president. And again, just some of the things that were discussed in that pool. About 6 minutes, you can find it on YouTube there. No difference in a face-to-face than with a telephone call. President Trump called Putin a smart guy, said he's been doing it a very long time, but said, hey, I make a lot of deals. I've been doing this a long time too. He seemed kind of excited to have this conversation. He talked about business. He said a lot of business people are going to be here on the Russian side. No business talk until ceasefire talk. More attacks, talked about the drone attacks last night. There was also an exchange of prisoners with Ukraine. So a lot happening on that front. Trump says he's going to talk to Putin about all of it. And he says he's not going to negotiate for Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine. He's going to let Ukraine negotiate for Ukraine.
And the Russian delegation includes business people, and this is again according to the White House press pool. He said that he would be open to discussions with Russia if we make progress. And he did suggest that the latest Russian strikes on Ukraine are Putin trying to negotiate, thinking it helps him make a better deal if they can continue the killing. And he specified that any consequences for Russia would be economically severe. And the president also said that he intends to announce tariff rates and chips and semiconductors next week or the week after. So we'll definitely be seeing what comes out of this. And one person also, I think, that has been missing on some of these itineraries has been also General Dan Kane is supposed to be with the president on that flight. That's unusual. You know, he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has said that in his views, Russia is one of America's main adversaries. He has kept a low profile in that job, but he has vowed to give Donald Trump and Mr. Hegseth his best military advice, and he called it to speak truth to power. So that's interesting for him to be on board with this group as well. And of course, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, also on this flight with Marco Rubio. Definitely a lot of people and business people as well as military leaders here.
And again, if you're just joining us, we're looking at Air Force One, waiting for the president to step off. We're still waiting for the arrival of the Russian president at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. You mentioned General Kane. He was up here not too long ago. Senator Sullivan was showing him around the state a little bit. They were talking about, our strategic positioning
locations,
in the Arctic, right? So he's very familiar with our capabilities here in Alaska, the importance of where we're positioned, what's been happening with encroachment of our airspace with Russia in recent times, China as well. So he's very up to speed, just in a conversation I had with Senator Sullivan talking about General Kane. But you think it's interesting that Kane is up here, right?
It is. And, he's critical of Russia and has really kept a low profile. Military leaders in particular, they're not politicians.
Right.
It's not their role.
That's right.
But it is here, he has said, to speak truth to power. So that will be interesting to see what he takes away from these moments. And Pete Hegseth had said, that he's called for return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders as part of this peace deal. And he says that's an unrealistic objective. So definitely people come into this with their own feelings.
Right.
And who is the dominating person in these meetings, and the president, what advice does he take from people, and what does he go with for his own gut? He had said that he would know within minutes if this was going to be successful or not.
Right.
And he had gone from when he was running for president, saying that he could make a peace deal in 24 hours. This is almost 3 years later. So what could happen? And one thing I found interesting from Congressman Nick Begich, he had said, anytime somebody tries to broker a peace deal, that should be a good thing, around those lines. And I thought that was an interesting comment, especially when you have the others who say Russia or Putin being here on American soil is already a win for Russia. So it's so many different varying viewpoints during these talks, and we'll see like who rises to the top in these feelings. And I can imagine some of the feelings and sussing out a situation and seeing what kind of vibes you have, as well as, just information that continues to come into these. And then we see another plane, not sure if that is I'm being told this seems like this is going to be a press plane. Of course, there are reporters who travel everywhere with the president, and then there are reporters such as the ones that you've seen with Ariane and Johnson that kind of go ahead. There is the tower over there at JBER, and you can see the plane landing, and this is full of reporters coming in. Again, this is a little bit ahead of schedule at this point.
It's a little ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
What did we say? The Air Force One touchdown at 10:20.
10:20.
Back there's a shot of Air Force One as we await President Donald Trump to step foot on JBER. Let's see, man, so much to talk about. You mentioned, Pete Hegseth talking about the the drawn up lines, and that's been something we haven't really talked about today, but in terms of land swapping and what's going
And
to
that was
happen
going to be a non-starter for Zelensky. He had already said that. Any talks of land swaps was a non-starter.
Right.
And so the first thing that both leaders, though, Putin and Zelensky, have said is that, to begin this, they have to start with a stopping of fighting. That was the first thing that has to be the first thing to be accomplished, a ceasefire,
right,
before you talk about other things. So, the past few days, Russia has de-escalated some of those attacks on Ukraine, although people are saying that's to, kind of appease President Trump. And then also they have made pretty big strides, especially on the eastern half of Ukraine, for taking territory. And so, Russia still has a vast trove of money to continue funding the war in Ukraine.
And that's something that Governor Dunleavy pointed out this past week, that part of why Russia has this vast amount of money is because Europeans are buying energy. India is buying energy from Russia. And he says that, because Augusta McDonald in her one-on-one said, how would you end this war in Ukraine? And he said, well, if folks in Europe and if India and some of these different places were not buying energy from Russia, if they look to the United States, look to Alaska, let's make a deal, then Russia would not be funded well for this war. And then, of course, they've got, there's get in the weeds there, but that was the governor's opinion. It's going to be very interesting today. I don't know really where to pivot. You did mention earlier, President Trump, he did say he could wrap this up within 24 hours.
Right.
The war has been going on for 3 years. He's just been in office, though, since what, January? But obviously this is a lot different than what he thought when he made those promises on the campaign.
And just got a little bit of an update, and kind of suspected this all along, is that Putin and Trump are going to be getting off the planes at the same time.
Oh.
Which stands to reason. You don't want to be the guy out there waiting for somebody else to arrive. You want to have the production of it. President Trump is a showman as well.
Absolutely.
And you would want both world leaders to walk out at the same time, touch Alaskan soil at the same time, make an event of it. So it just kind of stands to reason that would happen.
The significance of something like that as well. You always you hear from experts, right? They talk about the body language, how you shake a hand, the eye contact, all the things that they discuss when it comes to two world leaders. And you're talking about two of probably the top negotiators in the world going to meet here today. And I don't know. It's going to be very interesting.
And
to say that.
You saw that helicopter there. That was a security helicopter kind of flying around right there. So with also, Marco Rubio is in the plane with Trump and is going to be part of these negotiations. He has at times criticized Mr. Putin as calling him a bloodthirsty and a butcher. Those are quotes from Marco Rubio. Of course, when he joined the Trump administration, he had a lot of frustrations about the situation, but has toned down those some over the past few months, but has been frustrated with Russia over the lack of process in the peace talks in Ukraine. The president also has gotten frustrated in the past few days about that as well.
That's heavy words from the Secretary of State, and then, of course, Senator Murkowski this week said the same, saying that Putin is a war criminal, and it's a really interesting situation that way. As we wait for President Donald Trump to step off Air Force One, like Rebecca had just said, it's probably going to happen in conjunction with the arrival of President Putin, and they're going to do it together. Yeah.
I picture the two planes beside each other, walking out together.
Well, there's only one red carpet, so I'd be very curious how that plays out.
Absolutely. And of course, this is a huge event. There are so many news organizations in town at this moment documenting what is happening. We'll see what happens. President Trump has, again, lowered expectations to say this is the meeting to the meeting, essentially, and that the next meeting would involve Zelensky. And that he had said, Alaska would be the best place for it. So it makes you wonder, he's supposed to leave around 5:30 this afternoon to go back to Washington. But if things, it just stands to reason to question when would that Alaska meeting happen?
Right.
Would you just stay here and do that, or do you pick another time to come to Alaska? There's just so many questions that really remain here. But as of now, the president is set to leave Alaska around 5:30 this afternoon. So crazy short visit here to the state, just a few hours, about a 6-7 hour plane ride from D.C. to Alaska. I think it's about 10 hours from Russia for President Putin. So quick turnaround. Seems like they'll have meetings this morning, or at least the governor had said, that he would be meeting with Trump this morning to talk about oil. And then the two world leaders are going to have a breakfast or a lunch around 11, or excuse me, a little bit after 11. And then they would meet in a joint press conference. I'm curious to see, because there are so many people in that press room that Augusta and Will are in, it'd be nice to see a large shot of that room to see how many people does that mean. Who are these reporters that will be at that press conference between Putin and Trump? How many of them? Where are they from?
What kind of questions?
What kind of questions will be asked, and how many questions will be taken? But again, this morning President Trump had said if you see him come out by himself, then the morning probably hasn't gone well.
Well, and things are already kind of changing. I mean, we heard from the press pool report there that it's going to be a 3-on-3 meeting as opposed to a 1-on-1, which changes the dynamic in an incredible way. Who is going to be sitting there with Russian President Vladimir Putin? As we continue to wait for Putin to touch down, this is supposed to be happening around 11 o'clock. So we're a little ahead of schedule in terms of President Trump landing, possibly. Just kind of playing it by ear here. Trump and Putin, and that's what you're seeing on your screen currently, shot live, the tarmac, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, and we got that team coverage. We've got Will Courtney and Augusta McDonald with the press pool, as Rebecca mentioned, there on J-Bear. Just outside of J-Bear, we've got Ariane Aramburo and Johnson Kuhn. They're on the Boniface entrance there, and we're getting a little bit. They're also with the press. I mean, the press is everywhere. With that in mind, let's go to Augusta McDonald and Will Courtney in the seat of the press.
And we're going to keep this video here just in case, but we will be hearing from Augusta right now.
Hey, Rebecca, John. I hope you have us. We've been, there's lots going on, of course, here on the risers. Now that we know Air Force One has touched down, and again, we are just kind of waiting to see how long this meeting lasts and what that might indicate. Of course, the expected press conference after the fact will bring a lot of answers about what's next in terms of this peace process that's initially proposed to start with a ceasefire. Of course, Russia is 1 week now past its deadline. It was last Friday to cease fire and cease its aggression in Ukraine. We're here 1 week later. The summit has happened. The world is watching, and it's yet to be seen what will come of this meeting. But of course, President Trump has indicated interest in, say this goes well, maybe the next one back here in Alaska with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. So time will tell. Lots to follow here, of course.
Yeah, and you mentioned deadlines. You said Russia's 1 week past deadline. There's another deadline looming in the background too. Trump has campaigned on this. He said he could get it done in 24 hours. Obviously, we're quite a bit of time out of 24 hours, but this is still an incredible moment, especially for this state, but also the nation and Europe as well. On what's next. I want to go back again to that picture back there. There's a banner that says "Pursuing Peace." Pursuing is the key word there, I think. Well, like you mentioned, this is not going to be the end-all, be-all meeting. This is not the meeting that, at least what we're being signaled, is going to be coming out with an amazing deal or with concessions. Like, we don't know what's going to come out of this meeting yet, but we do know that this is to set the table for the next meeting, which, like you said, could include Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, given this very big week and this big spotlight on Alaska, Alaska's representatives, its congressional delegation, as you were talking a little bit earlier, John, about Governor Dunleavy, has taken the opportunity to highlight for Alaska. Governor Dunleavy kind of leveraged the energy question in terms of how this conflict is being by Russia against Ukraine in terms of European, Chinese, and Indian purchases of Russian energy, saying instead the secondary sanctions that is proposed to come if the ceasefire deal doesn't happen today could, in a roundabout way, benefit Alaskan energy, and suggested that European countries shouldn't talk out of both sides of their mouth, and instead they should purchase energy from allies, suggesting the United States. And of course, Senator Dan Sullivan agreed with him in a meeting, in a one-on-one sit-down interview that we had yesterday. So they're certainly emphasizing the development of Alaskan energy, which of course President Trump supports, in this conversation. So they want to see let's leverage energy economy away from Russia and maybe back here in the United States, maybe in Alaska. So they've been happy to see that come out of conversations this week. All right, and we will send it back to you.
Has arrived in Alaska for his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin over Russia's war in Ukraine. I got a text just a minute ago from a reporter saying that the Russian plane is in the Willow area now, so we should be seeing it pretty soon. So there is press pool who travel with the president, and they take notes for everybody, kind of offer some color. And so we want to go through some of the questions that were talked about today. So the question was, what would make today's meeting a success? And President Trump said, I can't tell you that. I don't know. There's nothing set in stone. I want certain things. I want to see a ceasefire. This has not to do with Europe. Europe's not telling me what to do, but they're going to be involved in the process, obviously, as well as Zelensky. Again, this is President Trump's quote to the Pool Reporter today. He says, but I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Everyone said it can't be today, but I'm just saying I want the killing to stop. I'm in this to stop the killing. You know, we're not putting up any money. We're making money. They're buying our weapons, sending them to NATO, and NATO's sending us big, as he says, beautiful checks. But I don't care about that. What I do care about is they lost last week 7,011 people, almost all soldiers. So the next question that the reporter asks is, what is the difference between a phone call and a face-to-face meeting?
Right.
Of course, that's always, people are so different in person than they are on the phone. But President Trump says no difference. Look, he's a smart guy. He's been doing it for a long time, and so have I. Been doing it for a long time, and here we are. We're president. That was much more difficult than what I'm doing today, believe me. So we are getting along. There's a good.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. It's only going to be about 2 minutes, but we will come back to this live coverage here in Alaska as we wait for the president to, I guess, come off of Air Force One. We'll be back, like I said, in 2 minutes. Impact Studio. Thanks for joining us. Coming back after 2 minutes there inside the Impact Studio. We're going to go back to our station at KGW, who seems to have, KTUU. Sorry about that. Another one of our affiliates that's covering this. But we do have the Russian president's plane in the air. And in fact, I thought he was on the ground because... That's true. That's true. It could be because I had seen him placing, I believe, some flowers at a World War II memorial that commemorated U.S.-Russian relations. So again, this could be from earlier, but you're taking some images of the Russian president and his plane landing on the ground. We're going to go back to the coverage there, KTUU.
Well, and as you just read, President Trump thinks they want to do business, and he's not going to talk business until ceasefire talk. Let's see.
And here's some, this is reporting from Russian reporters. So a spokesperson for the Kremlin says that these talks between President Trump and Putin, this could take at least 6 to 7 hours. That is a lot longer than I think we had kind of had the impression that this was going to take. And also that the two world leaders will be accompanied by their aides during their one-on-one meeting, and that Russia hopes for the summit to bring about results. Of course, didn't go into details about that. For that, the motorcade with top Russian officials who are part of the delegation have departed to the summit venue, which would be on J-Bear, we are assuming. And again, you are looking at two videos. One is of a Russian fighter jet. The other one on your left, that's Air Force One. So we're assuming kind of at this point that was Russian security. Again, very tense moments here. And security has been of top of mind of everybody. Yeah. You know, Governor Dunleavy as well as Senator Sullivan have all said this is best this is happening at J-Bear. You know, we've had other visits before, and there just has been by other presidents, and there's just been so much leading into these things. And this one presumably feels really fast. And to not be able to secure areas out of your control, areas you can control are military bases, and just who can come on and who can and your control the surroundings.
Yeah. Oh, and as we saw the Russian plane just land, you saw the fighter jets, just some other folks that are taking part in all this. Yuri Ushakov earlier saying that Russian president will include Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Defense Minister, we said the Finance Minister, the investment economic guy, like we were saying, just quite the envoy, a lot of business people. CNN talked with Yulia Mabe. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're just sitting here with just awaiting President Donald Trump sitting on that plane. I don't know if the press, there's a couple of different doors, right, on Air Force One in terms of where folks come out of. There's a back door, there's a lower door. There you see a little taxiing from that Russian plane we saw it take down, which very well could have Putin on that plane.
Still waiting to see updates, but definitely can see that it's Russian lettering on the side of the plane and the flag as well. Again, President Trump and President Putin are going to step off the planes at the same time to go out onto the tarmac. You will see at some point a big group of reporters getting out, perhaps in the back of the plane, set up real quick, because this is the shot, you know, that everybody wants, is these two men on Alaska soil, on American territory. And so the Russian president has just landed at J-Bear. President Trump got here about 10:20 this morning. They are expected to come out at the same time and then go into meetings. Marco Rubio will be in there. That's a new addition. That's a change in the schedule.
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State. And so a lot of people, a lot of business people as well from Russia, also in these negotiations. And I want to go back to that quote that Donald Trump had said to the pool reporter that he would be upset, you know, if something didn't happen out of this.
Right, right. Well, he said, and then at the very end of the pool, the press pool, he was asked about the consequences. He had talked about some heavy consequences if nothing happens here. And he said they would be, you know, in terms of the severe consequences, economically severe, right? Here's the question. What do you mean by severe consequences? You mentioned that this past week. Quote, economically severe. Yes, it will be very severe. I'm not doing this for my health, okay? I don't need it. I'd like to focus on our country, but I'm doing this to save a lot of lives, unquote. And before that, he had mentioned 7,000 people, over 7,000 people dying last week in the Ukraine conflict. And he said mostly troops, soldiers, but not sure that. But that was all in the press gaggle on Air Force One as he was flying from D.C. And we're seeing the taxiing Russian President Vladimir Putin on that Russian plane pulling up.
Here on J-Bear.
Right there on J-Bear. It is absolutely wild.
And so here we are pulling up to the stairs, and presumably in just moments, you're going to see President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin walking onto American territory, or walking into America, the United States, here in Alaska. We're being told this is the first time that presumably, or at least publicly, that Putin has been to Alaska.
Right.
President Trump has been here a few times between refueling and campaign stops. So definitely, I think his grandfather had a hotel here as well.
He mentions that. He talks about
that. Yeah. So we're just waiting now. Waiting at this point. The two men will come out. You can assume, will take photos, shake some hands. We'll see if we can see who's in this group of people in black suits. There tend to be, dignitaries that meet with the president, the governor and such.
Just checking in, guys. We're watching KTUU's coverage of Putin Force One that is on the ground right now. Obviously, you can see the insignias of the Russian plane right there as they wheel this staircase closer. I imagine this is why President Trump has been waiting aboard Air Force One to see the arrival and to wait on the arrival of the Russian president. Although I think he's been there since yesterday, so this could be for pomp and circumstance. But anyway, either way, it seems like both presidents will come out together, maybe take a lap or so. And there's always usually a journalist gaggle outside of where these planes arrive. Then again, we're awaiting the big press conference tonight at 7:30. We do want to go over to a friend of ours in Cabarrus County, Courtney Wyatt, who is busy doing a lot of things in Cabarrus County, namely, though, the county fair, getting ready for that. She's the the fair director. It's great to have you, Courtney. Let's just start. Seems like we're in good territory for weather in terms of the heat. I know the humidity may not be as good, but it definitely is fair weather. So I'm sure you guys are excited there, right?
We are excited.
So talk a little bit about the fair, what people should expect, and what the dates look like.
All right. So this year for the Cabarrus County Fair, we are opening on September the 5th, and we will go all the way through the 13th. You will have a rodeo 4 nights of the fair. That will be the 5th, 6th, 12th, and 13th. So both Friday and Saturday night of each weekend. And we have a lot of things going on this year, a lot of new things that I'm excited to talk about with you.
Well, let's talk about those exciting things. Name them off for me. I know you guys have competitions. There's different categories. People bring livestock out there. There's quilting. Let's talk about some of those things that people can do and see.
Yes. So our entries the deadline for entries is this coming Wednesday, August the 20th. Folks can enter online, but we have all kinds of categories such as photography, quilting, needlework, baking, sewing, horticulture. You can put your hay entries in there if you make hay. We also have livestock competitions. So we will have a horse show, a mule and donkey show, sheep show, goat show, beef cattle show, and a dairy cattle show.
Lots to obviously be involved in. Let's talk about specific themes or new categories being introduced for this upcoming fair that are different from previous years.
Okay, so our theme this year is a Western theme, mainly to highlight the rodeo that we're going to have. We've never had a rodeo at the Cabarrus County Fair before. And then as far as new competitions that we have beefed up our goat show a little bit. We've added some classes to that. So that is new, and we hope that we get some more folks coming to the GOAT show because we added those classes, and we'll be adding classes and things every year. So every time we're going to try to increase it and make it just a little bit better.
All right. Any special exhibits or events planned? Any that maybe deal with the history of the fair, the local community at all? Anything like that, Courtney?
Special events that we have this year are a Cabarrus County Fair pageant. We have several bands coming out. On Monday night, we have the Delmonicos. On Tuesday night, we have Landon Klein. And then on Wednesday night, we have Too Much Sylvia.
Lots happening. Let's talk about prices. And again, dates, run through those last things for me. Anything else that comes to mind that we should talk about?
So the prices are, admission to the fair is $8. Your ride wristband for unlimited rides are $37. And your rodeo admission tickets are $25, and that's general admission. And that anyone under the age of 2 gets in free for the rodeo. Otherwise, it is $25 general admission. And then also with the fair admission tickets, 5 and under are free. I think that covers my admission tickets.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was perfect. Well, Courtney, appreciate your time and highlighting the Cabarrus County Fair coming up, and all you guys are doing, obviously, to get people out there, to continue the tradition, and all those competitions. They really do mean a lot to the people that are involved. So it's great to see that the tradition is still going on. So thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing everybody out here this year.
We'll look forward to seeing you as well. All right, thank you so much. We're going to continue back here inside the Impact News studio and go back to the president and the Russian president about to come out of one of their planes here.
President Trump said, I'll know within a minute or two of getting in the room with Putin in terms of whether this meeting is going to be a success or not. I think do you say just walk out maybe? Who knows what's going to happen? Are they even going to be around for lunch today? What time will the president take off? Good questions. One thing real quick, we got this report from the AP. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, he put out a video address today about his hope for a, quote, strong position from the United States in this meeting. Zelensky said, everyone wants an honest end to the war. Ukraine ready to work as productively as possible to end the war, and we hope for a strong position from the United States. And he also stressed Russia, quote, is killing people, unquote, despite the upcoming negotiations. And he added that the war does continue, and it continues precisely because there is no order, nor any signals from Moscow that is preparing to end this war. So that is a statement from Zelensky, President Zelensky of Ukraine today.
And of course, the hope that, the summit, if successful, could pave the way for further talks between Putin, Trump, and Zelensky. Zelensky is not invited to this one. So, that's some of the concerns that we have been hearing, in particular from Russians who now live in Alaska as American citizens, and Ukrainians as well. I think that people have some, the expectations have been high and then low and then high and then low. And then, we just read what the president said on Air Force One. And again, that sounds very strong.
Right.
And it seems like the tone again has turned to, I expect results to happen today. Versus this is the meeting to the meeting.
I expect results, and if I don't get results, there will be severe economic consequences.
Severe consequences.
So, that is the quote, severe consequences.
And he had said that if Putin doesn't agree to a ceasefire, there could be harsh new sanctions that would ramp up economic pressure on Russia. He expressed confidence in reaching a deal at the Alaska summit, but he said that he would, though, walk away. That's the words, walk away, if negotiations with Putin did not go well. Zelensky today urged Russia to end the war. He had said to the Associated Press and the Wall Street Journal, we are counting on America. He said that on social media before the summit. So we are counting on America. That is from President Zelensky about these meetings today. He and Putin are scheduled to meet at 3 p.m. That's Eastern time. They're expected to be one-on-one meetings with Putin. now including 2 advisors for each leader. This according to the White House press secretary. And we are sitting here waiting. You can see on your left screen, that's a group in support. You can see a bunch of Trump flags and American flags. We are looking at Air Force One right now. The door's been open about 30 minutes or so. We are waiting for President Trump to leave the plane. Trump says he wants to end the fighting that was sparked by Russia in 2022. During that invasion, he said that he and Putin have spoken over phone several times since the start of the U.S. president's second term, but the relationship that has soured recently, these last several months, as President Trump has gotten frustrated, with telling Putin on social media, to end this war and it not happening. And so right now you're looking at President Donald Trump.
Yep.
We're again looking at President Donald Trump walking off of Air Force One onto Alaska's land right now. He is presumably going to be meeting at the same moment, at the same time on the tarmac with President Putin, the 2 men right now. This has been a lot of lead up and a lot of eyes. The world is watching right now.
Wow.
So we'll see.
Slow, determined walk.
Exactly. We'll see, and there is President Putin, a little bit behind President Donald Trump, quickly going down the stairs. And we'll see what these, what is the handshake, what is the tone, try to read some body language at this point to see what do these 2 men, what are they both putting out as far as a vibe to each other. President Trump seemed a little frustrated on Air Force One today in his comments to the pool reporter. And again, Russian media has said that these talks could be 6 to 7 hours. Both men now reaching the red carpet here at JBER to stand in front of the Alaska sign, I presume. And they still not shaking hands yet.
No.
Don't see President Trump looking.
Kind of looked over. He's looking over there.
Curious to see where these 2 planes are. If one's to the left or right, it's kind of hard to tell. But both men by themselves. Interesting. No staff.
No staff.
Just security. Can't tell if they're looking at each other at this point or what's happening. But they should be meeting up in just moments for this historic summit that is happening in Alaska between Russia and President Trump.
Very different pacing in the walk of President Trump and President Putin. Looks like he's looking over. Maybe they're gonna sync up their walk for the photo op. But first time President Vladimir Putin has ever stepped foot in Anchorage, Alaska. You just saw it live at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson.
As we'll see now, President Donald Trump is clapping. Not sure what is over there. If he is looking at, there you go, the 2 men shaking hands on Alaska soil.
Little pull back and forth. This is what you want to watch for. What? A little smile.
Both men smiling.
Yeah.
Both walking over. Got the military there.
Trump and Putin meet on the flight line. Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Anchorage, Alaska.
And you are watching a very important moment in Alaska history right now. Vladimir Putin in Alaska on American soil. President Donald Trump here hoping to negotiate for peace with Ukraine. We'll see what happens, if this is the meeting to the meeting or if this could lead to peace between these 2 countries. There's a lot at stake for everybody involved. There you have some security flying overhead. Both men walking towards the camera now. We see that they should be up at that riser in just a few minutes. I did not see a microphone. President Donald Trump clapping. We'll see what happens now, if this is just a waving moment or if this is to say something. I'm not sure we'd be able to hear them, but huge moment. These 2 world leaders here in Alaska for this historic summit.
Right there, right in front of Air Force One. Vladimir Putin, President Donald Trump, another handshake. And they're about to
pat.
And a hand pat. I know it's fun to listen to the experts talk about, like we said, the eyes, the smile, the handshake. I wonder what they're saying right now. Are they being
to be a fly in the wall right now?
I know. Are press shouting out questions right now? There we go. Okay, we're gonna head to the meeting.
This is right on time now.
What did we say? About 11:15 is when they're going to connect.
And so they should be getting in. They're supposed to be going to lunch now. Marco Rubio will be with them. This was going to be one-on-one, but now both men have aides. and they are, according to their schedule, off to have lunch this moment. And then that's presumably where they'll be talking. They're in the motorcade right now, heading off to the negotiations. And we'll see. We're all kind of on standby to see what happens right now.
More to come, and we got your complete coverage right here on Alaska's News Source. Just to give you a little context, it was 1 week ago, last Friday, President Trump's deadline for Putin to either enter a ceasefire deal with Ukraine or face sanctions targeting the Russian economy, and that included possible secondary sanctions on countries that do business with Russia. That day, Trump, of course, posting on Truth Social, the highly anticipated meeting between myself as President of the United States of America and President Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday in the great state of Alaska.
And it's interesting, as we watch and as the audience watches, also keep in mind that President Zelensky's watching. This is European leaders are watching, closely monitoring the outcome. Some of the Zelensky did speak with Trump earlier this week to hash out red lines for the discussions. Don't know what those are, but Trump told European officials that a territorial concession would need to be addressed between Russia and Ukraine directly. That is not with him. That's between those two men. Trump had said today that there was a possibility the U.S. would join with Europe to offer security guarantees ahead of Alaska's meeting. And the U.S. president also said that he believed Putin wanted to make a deal, but he acknowledged that there were still several hurdles securing that deal, including Russia's conditions for ending the war. And this is a quote from President Trump today. We'll see if they can get along. If they can, it'll be great.
All right, we see the motorcade rolling out. We see Trump supporters in Midtown Anchorage looking for an end to the war in Ukraine as President Trump and Vladimir Putin, there's the shot, Putin waving to the press as they go to have lunch, you say, and
begin the talks.
There you go.
To see if war can be peace can be achieved.
And you mentioned Vladimir Zelensky again. He did release a video today to address this summit, the Alaska summit. He said, quote, he's looking for a quote, strong position from the United States, unquote. Everyone wants an honest end to the war. Ukraine ready to work as productively as possible to end the war. But he did stress that Russia is still killing people. President Trump said over 7,000 people died last week, most of them soldiers. And he also said that, he's not going to talk business until the ceasefire is, until there is a ceasefire.
And there's interesting things that kind of trickle in, little bits of information that come in throughout the day. So that Putin's car that you're seeing right there, that's a Russian-made car. It's been prepared previously on the runway to receive the Kremlin leader. It's just fun little tidbits that come out throughout the day that I'm sure they'll be slowly trickling out as we continue this coverage. Of course, Donald Trump was waiting on Air Force One, so the two men would come out at the same time and arrive at Joint Base Elbendorf-Richardson at the same time. They were seeing stealth F-22 fighter jets that were near the red carpet. Air Force One, we have the words in front of Alaska 2025. Yep. Both men stood there for a moment, and now you can see they're in their motorcades, heading off to these discussions. And throughout Alaska, we are seeing Trump supporters to end the war, standing with Ukraine, and also saying that Putin should not be in America. So we have this is the gauntlet of opinions.
A lot of opinions, a lot of feelings, rightfully so. But if you I was just going to say, take a look at that shot. I mean, it's incredible. We've got a lot of people, as we were talking about the opinions and the feelings, you got people protesting. We had a big protest. Adrian Peterson covered it for us up in Fairbanks yesterday. Over 400 people on Cushman. Here in Anchorage, folks lined up on the New Seward Highway near C Street, essentially saying, we do not want Putin here. He's a war criminal. Arrest the man when it touched down. But then you got folks today saying, celebrating Donald Trump. And a lot of people want to see just a war come to an end. And it could all start right here in Anchorage, Alaska. And no matter what you feel, that is an incredible sight right there. Air Force One touchdown. J-Bear, such an important meeting.
And so after this meeting, the U.S. delegation will have a bilateral lunch.
Okay.
That's going to include the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, and the Defense Secretary. as well as White House Chief of Staff Susie Willis. So it will be interesting to see how long these talks actually do happen. And it will be interesting to see because at this point, there is a schedule to have both President Trump and Putin meet right there. So here on Alaska soil, to have a joint press conference, you can see reporters already kind of getting ready in that room. That should happen after lunch today, but President Trump had said, if you see him by himself, the day wasn't good.
Right.
But at this point, both are scheduled to talk with reporters.
I love it. He said within the first couple of minutes, right, he would have a pretty good sense. Both men smiling when they shook hands, you know, the little arm pat. I don't know exactly what that means. It means something, right? But yeah, they were both smiling. Hopefully they have a good conversation. Trump said he would know within 5 minutes. And if it's a short meeting, it's not good. If it's a long meeting, maybe it's good. I think that's not a direct quote, but that is kind of what they were thinking. So we'll see how it plays out. You said the president is scheduled to leave Anchorage about 5:30.
About 5:30.
And but he's also said that, and he's alluded to this being the first meeting of maybe 2-3 meetings, a couple of meetings
In Alaska.
And he said he'd like to see that happen pretty quick.
Right.
He'd like the timeline to be fast. So will that happen next week? Will that happen tomorrow?
Will that happen 5 minutes from now?
Exactly.
You know.
Are we flying Zelensky over right now? Who knows? But a lot to come.
Absolutely, and we were going to, of course, keep you updated as all this happens. Air Force One, we're going to, just because it's such a beautiful sight to see here in Alaska, this is Air Force One. It's about 10:20 this morning, so, you know, just to see it coming into JBER for this historic summit between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. So seemingly they are off to lunch and to talk at this moment. Russian media saying 6 to 7 hours. We'll see. But the president is supposed to be scheduled to leave Alaska at 5:30, so we'll see what actually happens. And we have boots on the ground. We have reporters in the room where they will have that joint press conference afterwards. And we have reporters outside of JBER monitoring that situation, though Ariane said that people are kind of wrapping up. So it does lead you to question where they go next. But Governor Dunleavy had said yesterday that he didn't expect them to leave JBER.
Right.
And Susan, you know, the mayor of Anchorage, said that
They don't expect these things, but we're ready in case they do, right? That was one of the things that, speaking with the Secret Service, they scout out Anchorage. The second it was announced Alaska, they probably had a pretty good idea.
Absolutely.
They were up here, they were doing their recon. But like you said, we got the team coverage. We've got Johnson Kuhn and Ariane Aramburo outside the Boniface gate of JBER. We've got Will Courtney and Augusta McDonald inside. They're going to be there at the press conference, as you said. And of course, we've got Lauren Maxwell, who is in Midtown Anchorage, and she joins us now where we got a rally in support of Donald Trump and what's happening today.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably about 70 people here along the Seward Highway and Northern Lights, and they are definitely in support of Donald Trump. This is a rally that was supported by the Alaska Republican Party, and we just talked to the chair a few moments ago, Carmela Warfield. She says, this isn't a demonstration, it isn't a protest, it is really just a welcoming event for the president, and a lot of people here who say they are proud that this summit is taking place here, and they do actually believe that he is the man to bring peace. So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of fun. We've heard music. There's a man dressed as Santa Claus. There's kind of a lot that's going on right here, but these are folks who are proud to have our president here. Now, I should also say this is the exact same spot where last night we had a couple of hundred people that were very much pro-Ukraine. It was another demonstration in support of Ukraine. And some of the folks that I've talked to here, I've asked them, you know, is it more about the summit for you? Is it more about President Trump? Is it one side or the other? And, you know, honestly, I think all of them do have the same eventual goal, which of course is ending the war, you know, ending the casualties, but maybe some very different ways about how to get there. The other thing I think is kind of interesting is we've been here probably for about an hour now, and maybe a little bit longer, and there is an APD presence. Several police cars are in the parking lot. I spoke with some of the officers, and they told me that there is increased security throughout the city today. As you might imagine, they've got officers stationed at different locations around town. Not that they're expecting issues, but of course they always need to be prepared. So again, we're out here at a rally in celebration of President Trump being here, and we've got a lot of people honking as they've driven by. People are very excited, and so that's what's happening here. Back to you.
So Lauren Maxwell's great. She did a wonderful interview with Senator Lisa Murkowski. You can check that out. AlaskasNewsSource.com, Midtown Anchorage, the pro-Trump rally there.
Definitely it seems like Anchorage's favorite place
it is
for
a good
our
spot.
rallies.
Yeah.
They're by Fred Meyer.
It's right, like where the politicians wave on voting day and all of that. I wonder why that is. Just Central Town.
Central Town, there you go. Just
All
down the street.
Just down the
We
street.
do want to show you some video because this is historic video.
Oh, yes.
You will see pictures of this and video of this for just days. The historic handshake between these two men right here. Putin and Donald Trump right there.
Who's the
Both
first to let
smiling
go?
at each other. Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Who is the first to let go?
There we go. I don't know. It was tough. There's so much to watch out for when you see the handshake. But I think what's interesting, both that have a pretty positive disposition. It looks like. You're talking about Trump's frustrations with Putin. He's been a little frustrated with how this has played out, but he wants to see some action. He says there will be severe consequences. When there's that rhetoric, when you're talking like that, and then you meet the guy in person. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly.
it's just very interesting. It's like it's almost like they know it's a little bit about the showmanship, talking big before the meeting sets something up. So
And you can see them kind of, looking around, and they every once in a while kind of talk to each other. It makes you. It's just I'm dying. Oh, they're the overhead flying.
Yeah.
It just so curious to know what do you even just have little chit chats about.
Well, and like, does the president Trump does he learn a little bit of Russian so he could say a word or two to the man? Like, did Zelensky or did Putin just say something in Russian? Or how are they communicating right now? There's a lot of great questions.
Absolutely.
There it is.
There it is. One more time. Definitely one for the Alaska history books right here.
And,
a little bit of a joke, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, something, but it definitely broke the ice. All right, so that was happening on the tarmac there on Jay Bear, and somewhere on Jay Bear. Not exactly sure, but we know this is where the press conference is going to take place here in a couple hours, pretty soon. Let's check in with Augusta McDonald and Will Courtney on Jay Bear.
Seems like we're having a little bit of.
Oh,
and this is just live TV for you.
Live TV.
You have like every satellite and broadband unit.
That's right.
Converged here. You're going to have some troubles.
And a lot of people don't know. So we got these backpacks, like you said, you're looking for cell signals, different things. When everybody is locked into a cell signal, which, as we said, international thing happening here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people.
So where they just were, that's where that joint press conference is supposed to happen if it happens. So those two, we have the two reporters there, as well as would you see space for maybe 20 or 30 people? It seemed like maybe. Let's take a look there. So there's what we're talking about. This is where that press conference is going to happen, presumably in just maybe an hour or two. We'll see. There's a difference of opinion on how long these talks are going to happen. So this could be happening in the next hour, or this could be happening in the next 6 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, you're setting the stage here. You got the Russian flag, the U.S. flag, pursuing peace. Big letters there, the seal of the president. And this may turn into just President Trump coming out. He said if it's a bad meeting, Putin probably won't show up. So in that very room that we're looking at right now, just I would say back a little bit behind the camera we're looking at, we've got Augusta McDonald and Will Courtney. Do you have an idea, like, how many reporters are there with you right now, or how many seats? Like, what's this going to look like today?
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know if I could put a head count. I mean, we're looking at probably 100, maybe 100, 200, maybe even 300. We were trying to do some math when we were on the way here. But John, I wanted to talk a minute about that tarmac moment that you were mentioning. We don't have a lot of visibility from where we're at in this press conference. We have a window to my left where we see one of the buses that brought us here. But we don't see the tarmac. We don't see a lot of anything. So when that moment happened, when President Putin, President Trump actually got onto the tarmac, we were kind of just seeing different cameras from around, and a hush literally fell over the room. One actually just fell over the room just now, actually. So, things are moving now. The president and both presidents are on their way to a lunch, is what I understand, and then they'll be coming to this joint press conference, which we'll be delivering live.
But that's where we've gotten a little bit of mixed messages. So the American press has been reporting that it was expected to be a working lunch, and it was sort of suggested that it would be a more brief discussion between President Trump and President Putin. But Russian media has been reporting that the meeting could last up to 6 hours. So time will tell how long we wait here. But there's a large grandstand behind us with the headline "Pursuing Peace." So we can presume, as they both agreed to, a joint press conference at some point today, and we'll be following that very closely.
Yeah, and it looks like several members of Secret Service are actually just at the front right now, just probably gaining an idea of what they're looking at for this press conference. Going back to what we're looking at time-wise, the president has been clear about, if this doesn't go the way he wants, he'll know within 5 minutes. Now, will the meeting go for 5 minutes? That's who to say. We're going to figure that out as it happens. But I think the president is making it clear that, he's not willing to concede. Whatever his goals are, we've been trying to report. There's been several different measures of that reporting on what the president is looking to get out of this meeting. But he's been pretty clear that he wants to save lives. I mean, I think that's the narrative and the words that he's been using. Like, anything else is unimportant. I want to save lives. This is obviously not a war that involves the U.S. directly. We don't have troops deployed in Ukraine. So the president's goals obviously something we're watching pretty closely.
And of course, now we know, as President Trump told reporters on Air Force One this morning, he en route to Alaska, he wasn't just having this meeting with Putin to broker a deal with Ukraine. He's just trying to get the Russian president to the table. And as our Alaskan congressional delegation has fleshed out for us this week, nobody's expecting this to be a fast process. So this is just the first step today, depending on how that discussion goes. Of course, that meeting on the tarmac, to me, it seemed cordial. It seemed friendly. President Trump clapped his hands. There was a smile. It seemed, as Rebecca, you were kind of watching to kind of see what's the vibe of this interaction after so many years of a back and forth relationship. And it seemed to be overall a fairly positive initial meeting, heading into what could result by the end of today in the beginning of peace talks and an end to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, and as Alaskan reporters too, I'm also remembering that just a few days ago, President Trump said, he'd like a second summit to take place here again. So, we're giving you what we can today, but we might be back doing this, and who knows how much time.
All right, John, Rebecca, back to you.
Well, Courtney, Augusta McDonald, thank you very much. And as we were listening to Will and Augusta, we saw a shot. Here we go.
There we go. Right? Yeah, I want to see that shot if we
can. Not pulled up yet, but President Trump, Putin, like we said, a little 3-on-3. The advisors, you got everybody there getting ready.
I believe NBC is the pool camera for this event, but we did see for just a moment there the two men sitting together. Not sure what that shot was, but it was definitely interesting. But I do want to go back to Ariane and Johnson outside of J-Bear on the Boniface Gate area.
Yeah, Rebecca, John, same sentiments, kind of piggybacking off of what Will said. And as we've been reporting, that we had the anticipation, and so now that both presidents have met, they shook hands.
Seems friendly.
Seems friendly, yeah. And they're now having this lunch meeting, if you will. The reporters here around us, in fact, are having lunch. We saw a reporter that just walked.
All right, kind of losing that feed from Anchorage, Alaska. Our folks at KTUU bringing us in-depth and continuous coverage. Can't thank them enough because it's not easy to continue to hit those reporters. Obviously, find the latest information as much as possible. What you did see, if you were tuning in here on WCNC Plus, was the start of the Pursuing Peace meeting, and then they kicked out the gaggle of reporters. So things are beginning. I wonder when lunch will be. It seems like they're meeting right now. And then, of course, you've been hearing them talk about the time ahead, so we'll have to see what happens. We're going to go back to live coverage, though, as they are still on the ground, and we'll go back to it in coverage now.
There have been reports of, obviously Alaska is no stranger to natural resources, rare earth resources, and it's been reported that some of those resources might be used as a bargaining chip to try to end this war in Ukraine, which was something that Sullivan had spoke about at length this week, saying that it's something he wouldn't support, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, you know, the armed services and the military, and I understand that we're getting video, you all are seeing video of Putin and Trump having their meeting, and so, you know, just kind of bringing it back and circling it back, they're having their meeting, they're on J-Bear, they're staying on J-Bear. Of course, we didn't know if they were going to stay or be off of the base. They're prepared for anything, but again, our Alaska lawmakers and our delegation is certainly weighing in on this, and for J-Bear to be put into the spotlight, it is Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, you know, it is an Army and it is an Air Force base.
Correct, which is, you know, goes to why everyone's been saying this would be such an ideal place to meet. There was a lot of speculation throughout the week as to whether or not it would be here. I think I remember hearing Alyeska was another option. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, everybody kind of understood that this would be the most appropriate place.
Yeah, kind of saying it would lessen maybe the kind of the circus hype around it, because as we mentioned, there is a ton of international media that is here in the great state of Alaska, and also too that J-Bear is no stranger to welcoming world leaders to the base. So they've done this before. They know what they're doing, and they you know, are confident that they can have these world leaders feel secure in doing this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I did want to touch on something we brought up earlier about flight restrictions, just because even though now that both presidents have landed and they're in talks, you know, it's still, these restrictions are still in place. We spoke with NORAD yesterday, who was sort of
All right, we're going to try to find this feed for you. Unfortunately, we're losing whatever we are getting from KTUU. Let's talk a little bit about the relationship between the president and President Vladimir Putin. Obviously, we know the first term with the president, there was, you know, a lot of talk about the election interference in 2016. You know, the president at the time was very skeptical of that. And then, you know, fast forward to 2018. There was a summit in Helsinki at the time where the president and the president of Russia joined together. And that was, if you remember, before the invasion of Ukraine started. That didn't happen until February of 2022. But prior to that time, in Trump's first presidency and early presidency, he did continue the sanctions that were put on Russia by the Obama administration. However, his tone was much different at the time with the president of Russia, trying to formulate and keep things cordial. Obviously, at the time, it seemed to be a critical priority of the president to try to stabilize relations at that time. And so, you know, juxtaposed to now this new term, the president not really pulling any punches in some sense, obviously wanting to, or seemingly wanting to find a ceasefire for Ukraine. But again, the invite for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was not extended. So this will be interesting to see. And both men from Russia and the United States obviously agreeing and admitting in weeks past that they don't expect a concrete ceasefire to be cobbled out in this meeting. This is just the beginning of these negotiations. And I guess that's the big question tonight, is how far we will get into this discussion of a ceasefire. So we've gotten there close, but obviously there's a lot of different mistrust, I would say, on both sides. And let's not forget the annexation of Crimea didn't happen too long ago, which is why a lot of the EU and UN allies are watching very closely as to what happens today. So we're going to go back to the coverage at KTUU.
We're going to send it back to Will in Augusta right now. They're hanging out in the press area where where we're thinking, if this meeting goes well, you'll see President Donald Trump, President Vladimir Putin addressing the press there. Will, Augusta?
John, Rebecca, that's right. We now know, we've seen the image. That meeting has begun. Again, a high-stakes meeting as Trump posted himself this morning with 3 exclamation points. There is a lot at stake today, and I think it's also worth noting who's not at the table in this meeting. This is a meeting between President Trump and President Putin. Right now, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is not a part of the conversation. That caused a lot of concerns with European allies who are worried that the very conversation happening right now will sway President Trump in favor of Russian interests in this conflict. Vladimir Putin has made it clear that he wants to keep several Ukrainian territories that he claims are annexed to Russia. Those territories have oil. They have the largest nuclear plant in the region. And so he's going to be bringing his proposal to the table. And President Donald Trump, as he said today, his role was getting Putin to the table, not brokering a peace deal for Ukraine. So that's where we're at right now. And we now know, of course, this meeting now underway.
Yeah, and with that meeting starting, it's probably important to start our stopwatches too. The president has been pretty clear about what he expects, but Russian media is saying otherwise. I think the president said today we're looking at maybe a 6 to 7 hour time span for this conversation, where the president said he might know in 5 minutes what's going to be at stake and if a deal can be brokered. If a deal can't be brokered, the extent of that deal, obviously up for debate still. Severe consequences are going to follow. That's what the president said at a press conference at the Kennedy Center, I believe, on Wednesday. So that's what we're looking at right now. We have not seen the president. We have not seen a lot of anybody from the delegation at this point. We're still waiting. We have the press conference right behind us. You can see that pursuing peace sign still on the narrative that's going to be leading this conversation through until we see both presidents.
All right, much to come, Will. Thank you so much. Back to you, John, Rebecca.
I do want to see if we can go back to some of that video of the motorcade, because I'm being told that President Trump and Putin both rode in the same car together, which is highly unusual.
It's very interesting. They were in the Beast, or the big,
Yeah, it's called the Beast.
It is the Beast.
It is the Beast. And so the two of them being in that same car together, that's fascinating. That is super unusual. And also, President Putin does speak English well enough to have a conversation.
Okay.
The two men have spoken privately before. And so there's, at this point, I'm being told there is not an interpreter in the car, but that President Putin speaks English. And so, and well enough to have a conversation.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting what even alone is being said within the Beast on the way to these places.
It's all fascinating, but yeah, and it's different. Like, so you said 2 world leaders connecting in the back of the Beast.
In the back of a Beast, yeah.
Huh.
Just unusual, really interesting.
Yeah.
So of course, one of the things that they're going to be talking about, and that is a non-starter for Ukraine, is the idea of land swaps.
Right.
Non-starter. They also have said that before anything happens, there has to be peace. The fighting has to stop. Russia has made major inroads recently, especially on the eastern side of Ukraine. And so President Trump has also said that it will be between Zelensky and Putin to decide on land swaps. So he is kind of taking himself out of that conversation. But, he said it's all about saving lives and that there would be deep consequences. Again, we don't know how long this meeting is going to last. But no matter what has happened, this is a historic moment for the country, and for Alaska to be involved in this is a big deal. It's very exciting to see it on our turf, and if another meeting does happen again, it will be here again, is what President Trump has said. So we'll see what happens next over these next few hours and how this lunch goes. And, presumably they're in there together right now talking, and Trump hasn't walked out. He had said,
That's right.
He was probably being a little facetious, but, had said he'd know in the first 5 minutes if this was a non-starter and would leave.
Yeah, he knew in the back of the Beast.
Yeah.
According to Trump. Just kind of get that feel, right? Stepping off the plane, getting in the room. All right. Over in Midtown Anchorage right now, we've got people in support seeing an end to this war in Ukraine, also a support of what the president is doing here in Anchorage right now. Lauren Maxwell joins us from Midtown Anchorage. Lauren.
That's right. You can hear some of the folks around me, some of the people that are honking as they go by. This is a Trump rally. It is a pro-Trump rally, and the people that I've been talking to say they are here basically to support the president. A lot of the folks that I talk to here say they don't feel like Donald Trump is necessarily getting the message that Alaskans are supportive, and so that is why they are here. It's also a rally that is endorsed, I would say, by the Alaska Republican Party, and I spoke to the chairwoman of that just a few moments ago, and she said, you know, we just want to show the president that he is welcome here, and we feel like he can make a difference. And of course, we're talking about not just supporting President Trump's policies, the folks here, but when I ask about the summit, they say, you know, we want to see peace, and we don't understand if somebody wouldn't support the president coming here to at least make an effort for that. So it's interesting. We've probably got about 75 folks here. I've seen dogs. There's a man dressed as Santa Claus we talked to just a moment ago. There's children. They want to make a point of saying that this is a happy occasion, and that they're thrilled that the president is here and hopefully making some progress on the summit. And I would say, you know, it's been growing ever since it started at about 11 o'clock this morning. More people are showing up with signs, and it's just kind of they would describe it as a happy atmosphere. So we've been talking to folks. We're going to continue doing that, and we'll let you know what they have to say. Back to you.
We do just want to say, because we do strive to be unbiased on either side, that we've seen, especially from Politico, reporting specifically that along the same boulevard that woman is on, there are a number of protesters that seem to be on the other side of that, holding American and Ukrainian flags. I would say, in aware, probably the same amount of people that we're seeing behind that woman as well, for the president being there and joining with the president of Russia. So you do have both sides. You just may not see both sides at this moment. And unfortunately, we have no control over the cameras that are on the ground there from KTUU. So their vantage point is going to be, and still continues to be, seems like the Trump supporters, which is no problem at all. But again, we did want to tell you that on the other side of that boulevard, it does seem to be protesters that have lined up, just as long as those that are for the president meeting with the Russian president, but Ukrainian flags and American flags on the other side of that. So we'll go back to KTUU's coverage of this meeting.
I feel. I mean, I'm feeling it. So, yeah, and just to kind of set this up for you a little bit, give a little context if you're just tuning in or you just want to get up to speed. Last Friday, so 1 week ago, Trump's deadline for Putin to either enter a ceasefire deal with Ukraine or face these sanctions targeting the Russian economy, including possible secondary sanctions on countries that do business with Russia. That day, Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "The highly anticipated meeting between myself as president of the USA and President Putin of Russia will take place next Friday," he said, in the great state of Alaska. That announcement came after Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods earlier that week. And that was in part because India buys oil from Russia. So after expressing weeks of frustration, Putin more was not doing, or that they were not doing more to stop the fighting, that Putin was not. Senator Sullivan actually sat down with Augusta McDonald this week. It was yesterday. Full interview, alaskasnewssource.com. But he thinks that these secondary sanctions, a primary reason for President Putin to be here in Alaska right now.
Right.
Because he's feeling the pressure, because the economic pressure being put on countries like India who are buying energy from Russia.
Right. And we're kind of at a standstill waiting to see what happens, because they are meeting at this point.
Right.
Again, each has an aide with them, and just what happens next, you know, again, and what are the expectations? They had a warm greeting when they shook hands.
Yes.
And on the tarmac, smiles and some back claps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so warm and
warm.
You know, but President Trump has been frustrated and has voiced these frustrations over the past few days about peace not being reached at this point. You know, he had said that he could solve it in 24 hours and
on the campaign
trail. And so we'll see what happens next. But, you know, Congressman Begich had said any movements towards peace is a positive movement. I thought that was interesting. You know, and then others, of course, say that with Trump here, with Putin here, that is a win for Russia to be on American land. You know, so we'll see there's a lot of nerves throughout the world at this point, in particular Ukraine, and Alaska has several about 1,000 refugees from Ukraine who have settled here, starting the first days of school today, as this meeting is happening about their former home, waiting to see if they can or will go back to Ukraine, or if they will be American citizens, just waiting to see what happens next. And, you know, how stressful to have something completely out of your
3 years.
Yeah.
The devastation, the sadness, the unknown for 3 years, not knowing what's happening in your home, having to go to a brand new place, acclimate, meet people, get out into the community, learn a new language. It's pretty incredible what people of Ukraine, our little community here in Anchorage, that I can speak of, has done. And it's 3 years is a long time, very long time. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a little headway made today. There, you're looking at the podium where President Trump and President Putin, if things go well, they're going to connect on that stage and talk to the press for a few minutes. They are meeting currently. So if you're just tuning in, President Trump and Vladimir Putin of Russia meeting on Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska. And that's happening right now. Trump said it could last a minute, could last 5 minutes. The Russian delegation saying it could last 8 hours. You know, we don't really know how long it's going to be. Trump did say if it's not a positive meeting, if it's not going well, I will end it abruptly. So we haven't seen an end yet, and we're just kind of playing it by ear.
And we do have that video now we want to show you. Now this is called the Beast. This is the one of the vehicles. Here you go. That's the Beast. And so what you're seeing here, this is a very unusual moment. Both world leaders, both Putin and Trump, are both within the same car. That doesn't happen.
No.
This is an unusual thing. This is also a moment where you're seeing where they can have a private conversation that we won't know what was said. Presumably, we won't know what was said here. And there have been other talks that President Trump has had with President Putin that we have not known what those conversations were about.
I love that, what you just said. There's two people in the back of that Beast right now having a conversation, private conversation. Very interesting. Very interesting.
And we are in a moment, we're going to be joined with a woman who definitely has been a leader in Alaska for the Ukrainian community, who has moved here to escape Russia and the war there. And again, we're showing you the video of President Putin and Trump getting into the motorcade together, an unusual moment. Definitely, we want to bring in some more people to talk about the kind of emotional side of this.
Absolutely.
Of 3 years of waiting to see what's home and what's left of home and where your new home is.
Wow.
And so many.
A lot of feelings.
Yeah, a lot of feelings definitely involved. And from all the reports I've read this morning, expectations, it seemed like in Russia as well as Ukraine were low. But, I thought it was interesting that Congressman Nick Begich had said any talks about peace is a good thing.
And he talks about peace.
Right.
Just want to get toward the finish line. Move the yardstick just a little bit. Right now, joining us in studio from the Alaska Ukrainian Relief Organization, Zori Opanasevich. Thank you very much, Zori, for joining us with the Ukraine Relief Program. We really appreciate you. I guess just what's going through your head, through your heart, through your mind right now?
My heart is pumping. I have been waiting for this moment. I agree with what you just said about Senator Begich saying that any movement is good, Any talk is good as long as it's talk about peace.
All right, we have a new video from the plane that the president just got off of Air Force One, where he spoke to reporters before getting off. Let's go to this now.
What I do care about is they lost last week 7,011 people were lost, almost all soldiers. 36 people in a town which got hit by a missile, but over 7,000 soldiers. It's crazy.
If you describe a little bit, Mr. President, because I know you've had a lot of phone calls with President Putin. What's the difference in a face-to-face, in-person?
No different. Look, he's a smart guy. Been doing it for a long time, but so have I. Been doing it for a long time. And here we are with President. And that was much more difficult than what I'm doing today, believe me. So we get along. There's a good respect level on both sides, and I think something's going to come of it. I noticed he's bringing a lot of business people from Russia, and that's good. I like that because they want to do business, but they're not doing business until we get the war settled.
Are you going to talk about this?
They need business. We have the hottest country on earth. We have the hottest economy on earth. We have the hottest country. We just set a new stock market record again. We have hundreds of billions of dollars flowing in from tariffs. We're the hottest country. We were a dead country, but dead like doornails, a dead country. 1 year ago, we were dead as a doornail. And now we have the hottest country. And he wants a piece of that because his country is not hot economically. In fact, it's the opposite. And China's not doing well economically, but we're all, look, I want everybody to do well. The war's going to stop and the killing's going to stop.
Mr. President, what do you mean by secure consequences? To take questions. We saw that Russia continued its violence into Ukraine last night, launching even more drones. What did you make of that?
Well, I think they're trying to negotiate. He's trying to set a stage. I mean, in his mind, that helps him make a better deal. It actually hurts him. But in his mind, that helps him make a better deal if they can continue the killing. Maybe it's a part of the world. Maybe it's just his fabric, his genes, his genetics. But he thinks that makes him, gives him strength in negotiating. I think it hurts him, but I'll be talking to him about it.
And his opportunity for discussions today, Mr. President, are the territorial swaps on the table? Will you be discussing that?
They'll be discussed, but I've got to let Ukraine make that decision. And I think they'll make a proper decision. But I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine. I'm here to get them at a table. And I think you have two sides. Look, Vladimir Putin wanted to take all of Ukraine. If I wasn't president, he would right now be taking all of Ukraine. But he's not going to do it.
Mr. President, what did you do?
Just one thing. What about
Don't
underestimate that?
The possibility of the United States providing security guarantees to Ukraine.
Maybe. Along with Europe and other countries. Not in the form of NATO, because that's not going to, there are certain things that aren't going to happen. But, yeah, along with Europe, there's a possibility of that.
You mentioned the number of business people that President Putin is bringing along. Is that something that you want to discuss with President Putin at this meeting?
Yeah, if we make progress, I would discuss it, because that's one of the things that they would like. They'd like to get a piece of what I built in terms of the economy. Just so you know, we were a dead country with our economy. He wouldn't be interested. He wouldn't have been interested a year ago with the Biden economy. But he is interested in the Trump economy because we're doing. Wait till you see when those factories start opening up. We have hundreds of factories all over the country, and that includes auto factories, AI factories, and every other. They're all coming in because they want to beat the tariffs. Because if they open here, they don't have to pay tariffs. If they don't open here, they have to pay, in some cases, 200%, 300%. I haven't even set some of the tariffs yet. I'll be setting tariffs next week and the week after on steel and on, I would say, chips.
Steel higher than
Chips and semiconductors. We'll be setting sometime next week after.
What rate are you looking at? What rate?
Well, I'm going to have a rate that is going to be lower at the beginning. And that gives them a chance to come in and build. And very high after a certain period of time. And if they don't build here, they have to pay a very high tariff, which doesn't work, so they'll come and build.
Mr. President, you had said earlier. You did that with me.
Isn't he a gentleman? He's a nice.
He's helping me out.
He's a very nice. He's one of the few nice ones. Yes.
You had said earlier this week that Putin would face severe consequences if you get the sense from him that he's not interested. What do you mean by that?
Economically severe. Yes, it will be very severe. I'm not doing this for my health. Okay, I don't need it. I'd like to focus on our country, but I'm doing this to save a lot of lives. Yeah, very severe. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, that is what the president had to say before he and President Vladimir Putin walked out together on the red carpet and then together in the Beast. As you saw, a very unusual sight. I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime a delegate where they've met in a different part of the United States riding together in the Beast without a translator or anybody else. As you may well know and as you may have heard, President Vladimir Putin does understand English enough to hold a conversation. So I imagine that's what those men were doing. But cannot imagine the conversation being had between the two of them. Of course, we're going to go back to KTUU's coverage, and soon we're going to toss things back to Nick Sturdivant for the 4 o'clock show. But again, don't forget our Impact Weather Stream. And again, we will have live coverage for you of the meeting and the press conference tonight from both presidents on WCNC Plus.
One is the first plane to land here. You know, President Trump had every right to, he could have stepped off the plane and made his moment and waited for President Putin to arrive. But the fact that he waited for Russian President Vladimir Putin to arrive, for both presidents to walk down, both presidents to be by themselves, and to have what seemingly looked like a friendly handshake, you know, maybe optimism, you know, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. But as you mentioned, we have the protests. You have folks that are here welcoming President Trump. We do have the folks that are also wanting the peace deal, and we stand with Ukraine. We still have the folks that are here. It's been people, we've been seeing a lot of cars coming by and honking. So for the most part, it seems that people are letting this kind of play out. And at this point, it really is just kind of a waiting game.
Yeah, waiting game, exactly. Yeah, I think that they have mentioned the idea of it could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, but I think it kind of echoes what the former Secret Service agent said when we spoke earlier this week about, you know, I don't know that two world leaders are going to make this kind of effort without the best intentions behind it, you know, on the same page as far as where they want to get to, but, you know, it's a matter of figuring out how to actually get there.
Yeah, and, you know, you have the pomp and circumstance around two world leaders coming to Alaska, and you have to have all the security measures in place, the logistics, the travel, obviously the media, and for folks covering that, but then there's the human side. There's the end game of why is this happening, you know, a peace deal in Ukraine, and for folks that have lost their lives and the casualties. And, you know, Alaska, I like to liken it, it's a melting pot of nationalities and folks that are here. So we'll send it back to you guys, and we'll stay covered.
Hey, Darian Air Bureau and Johnson Kuhn right outside of J-Bear. And thank you for joining us. We got that team coverage. We got to take a quick break, but we will be back at the top of the hour as coverage continues the Alaska Summit between President Trump and President Putin.
All right, yeah, so a big day for obviously everyone, especially for those in Anchorage, Alaska today at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. You saw them or heard them say J-Bar, which is what they affectionately call that base. A very interesting flyover that I don't think was captured on video, but we did hear it. There was a B-2 bomber that flew over both presidents' head along with 4 different F-22s flanking that bomber. And then, in fact, there was another B-2 bomber on the ground called Spirit, a long-range bomber that both presidents drove